guess.
You get a violin.
Wow, that really brought me back. Good censoring work. Oh no, she's still like, she had like a backup censor.
We censor women on this channel because
Yeah.
they just say stupid stuff.
Rightfully
No,
so.
I don't approve of this. I'm not sanctioning what Jason is saying. What is that beverage?
A swoon.
Yeah, what is this?
A swoon. Come on.
Go on. Say more.
It's a non-carbonated monk fruit
Read us the
sweetened,
description. The description.
beverage.
Non-carbonated. I was not expecting that.
Zero
Yeah.
sugar does not mean zero fun. As a professional dancer, my type 1 diabetes motivates me to shine brighter than ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
My daily
I liked it.
swoon is a reminder to enjoy life's sweetness. So cheers to big dreams, bold moves, and proving to yourself that you're unstoppable. Do they all have different stories on them?
Once daily swoon.
That's amazing.
That is good. No, I mean,
Riley Arnold said that.
every canister should be as motivational as that one.
Yeah, why doesn't Coke do this?
Well,
Does
I
Coke
mean,
do
Coke's on the ball. They've got like Star Wars characters on their cans right now. So that's not exactly, without its motivational qualities.
Yeah.
Dude, when I watch Star Wars, I feel like when Duel of the Fates, John Williams starts playing, I just get up and like start air lightsaber fighting. I think I was thinking about it a lot because I think I talked to you about this, Jason, that I think Star Wars introduced me to sword fighting. It was either that or like Robin Hood, the arrow. No. Sorry, that was misleading. But when you're a kid, when I watch my daughter, and I think, oh, like I have like a play sword, I'm like, I'm gonna play sword fight with her, and I'm like, oh, she doesn't have a concept for sword fighting because she's never seen a sword fight. And then I would try to think back, like, when did I first? Because I always remember growing up wanting to play sword fighting.
Yeah. How do you think sword fighting came about?
In history?
Yeah. Do you think it started with like a
Oh,
parent?
it's like, yeah, somebody was swinging a club at someone and somebody blocked it with their club, some like natural athlete just was like, boom. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. That was misleading. What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
So for me, it's 4, 5, 1, 3, 2.
Okay, hold on. I got it.
4, 5, 1,
7, 9, 8.
4, 5, 1, 3,
2, 7, 9, 8. And if
so all the most recent ones are the least favorite.
Yeah, but I love them.
Declined.
I love them though.
I loved them too. I thought they were so much fun.
Dude, when I watched 9 and everybody was just like, whoa, what a just way for the series to fizzle out. I was like, did we see the same movie? That was like some of the best action adventure content. Like it was a miracle on the screen, and you're just like,
it was wild. I remember thinking it was really crazy. I remember laughing hysterically, and yeah, it was great. My favorite part, I think my favorite part of all the films was when the Emperor reincarnates in the very last one.
Why did you like that?
I don't know. I just thought it was great because he's just standing there and just soaking it in.
I'm so glad we're here before Cal got on to drag us down with his 4.5-hour slog about how the Pope is right.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Dude, did you see the title of the stream?
No, what is it?
Cal said something smart again. God knows what.
Yeah, he said it for 4 hours straight without breathing. Now he did take breaks.
Yeah, but that was only because he was dumb and couldn't get his computer to work.
Oh yeah. No, but not the dumb part. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I said he was smart in the stream.
Oh yeah, it's always like I insult Cal, but then when you do it, I act all like self-righteous. I'm like, no, I would never say that. You can't razz on him, no.
Well, tell Cal I say hey when he gets here. I'm gonna go to bed because I'm 93 years old.
Good to see you. Happy birthday, 93.
It is. Oh, he's here now.
Oh, great. Now you have to stay another obligatory 10 minutes making small talk.
I don't even know if it's
the king
internet
of
works.
small talk.
It's just spinning.
Work.
How are you?
Yeah,
you have to whisper because you put your child to bed.
It's gonna be one of those nights. Oh,
there he is. Ooh,
he's come for a reckoning. We were supposed to set the tone that was going to be like really academic and
sorry,
but we messed it up. We talked about Star Wars.
I'm waiting to see a ghost in your house or something.
Yeah, if there's not a jump scare.
I have a lot of background noise right now. I'm just waiting.
Hey, when did you get the microphone?
The dishwasher?
An anonymous admirer sent me this microphone.
I love that.
My audio is trash in all of my videos.
They were really anonymous? Jason?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't know who it was to this day.
It was 100% Jason.
I really don't remember if it was me. I know I sent you the cheese,
Jason.
And I sent you the swole Doge. Those are the more memorable gifts.
Dude, so many people in my life have not gotten credit for the gifts that they sent me just because of how frequently Jason did. Just instantly said,
Jason. It is
yeah, what is he
goblet.
drinking? Yeah,
it's OJ.
It's OJ. Yeah,
Cal is the kind of guy that brushes his teeth, gets a glass of OJ, and then sits down for like a really lengthy.
It's marijuana in beverage form.
Uh-oh. It's illegal for you to tell us that.
Then gets a glass of OJ.
Okay, I'll let you.
All right. She's going to bed.
Bye, Cal. Hi, Mitch. Bye, Mitch.
Can we kiss on live television?
No. That's well, behind a cushion.
Oh, if I like.
No sound effects. Mute it. Mute it, and then.
you can do the sound effects. Oh, here, I'll mute it.
Okay, I'll do the sound effects. Okay, ready? Okay, enough.
That was a good sound effect.
Thank you. So we are here to discuss the unapologetically American film Steel Magnolias with an all-time ensemble female-led cast.
I've heard of this film, but I have no idea what it's about. Is it like Magnolia's number 2?
No, it's not related to Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, a masterpiece in its own right.
Is it for old people?
Yeah, no, but in a good way.
Okay.
It's for a different generation of people. It's a Southern staple, and it was strangely soothing.
Did you finish it?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
You think I would be on this if I still had more Steel Magnolias to watch? I don't think so.
How engaging was it?
Very. It was very moving, very cinematic. Normal movie time, like hour 45.
That's not bad.
No, yeah, it's from a time where movies were movies, Jason.
Sorry, I had to mute myself for a second. I didn't want to hear it clicking while I was typing. Do you mind waiting 1 second? I'm gonna grab my Bible from the other room just in case. I came on here unprepared.
Okay. We're not gonna need the Bible.
Because
for this.
If he ever comes back, he's in there chugging his orange juice.
I'm really to tell you the truth.
No, I'm still here. I just the dog's going crazy and Benjamin's still not totally asleep, but I'm here.
It's okay for us. It's probably
like the darkness.
More distracting for you, Cal, because I think your Zoom or whatever or the stream is filtering it out. I mean, obviously I can hear it, but
I'll still get it. I'll still get it. I'm still gonna get it. Do you have a monologue prepared to fill the 30-second of me?
Well, I'm just gonna make I'll make some. Yeah, go get it. I'll make some self-aware comments about my unpreparedness as a rhetorical tactic.
You could promote my new single.
Oh yeah, Jason Schweitzer. I don't even know if I think it is released under Jason Schweitzer. Has a new single that dropped yesterday called "Bacon and Eggs," I heard it in its infancy and fell in love with it, and I'm so glad that it's finally getting a broader release. Because, like with all of his songs, it's extremely powerful, but in a sneaky way. I mean, obviously, you're hearing a title like Bacon and Eggs and thinking, how deep can it get? But that's the sort of mystical quality of what Jason does as an artist. And you can look him up on Spotify or wherever music is streamed. Jason, SCHWEIZER. Oh, it's on the screen. And check out Bacon and Eggs. But I don't see his old stuff on here.
Thanks.
No, I'm going to try not to freak out about that live, because that was a real album. And now it's gone.
I still have it.
I still have it too. I mean, I have it on my computer, but there's something special about it being published.
I couldn't find my Bible. I don't know where it is. It might be in the RV.
Well, maybe you hit it in your heart. You've got more than one.
I hit it in my heart. I know one's in the car.
I'll get mine. Now it's your turn to make a monologue and promote me.
Okay. Mitch is a movie connoisseur. Is that how you say it? Some French word. I don't know. He watches a lot of films. He writes reviews for them. They're actually very interesting. And he also does conversations with some girl. I can't really promote it because I don't remember her name, but they're very cool. And he has done a few videos with her talking about such and such films. What's that female's name that you do movie reviews with?
Oh, Hinterland?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done a few movie podcasts on there, but
what's it called?
It's called Watch This List.
Watch This List. I'm just putting it in the comments.
That was a thoughtful plug, Jason. Thank you. I didn't think you'd actually have anything to. But I guess we're really here to talk about something that I'm completely unprepared to talk about. But it's okay because we can just follow in Cool Man's jet stream, in his wake.
He's back.
I mean, I could literally just spew these out, but what I was planning to do was for backstory, Cal sent Jason, myself, and a few others, Craig at least, a 4-hour long presentation, an apologetics presentation on making a case for why it's either the Catholic Church is the one true church, or it doesn't matter. Our theology doesn't matter. So I listened to it all. I think Jason listened to it all. I think Craig probably listened to most of it, if not all. And I don't know who else listened to it, but it was very good. It had all of the hallmarks of a Cal presentation, insofar as it was extremely well organized, had a very good structural aesthetic. It's just pleasing to the ear. He is, as always, the Christian David Foster Wallace. I had a lot of reactions to it, and I wrote them down. And my plan was to take the gibberish that I wrote down and organize out of like the 26 points something a little more cohesive. But Jason and Cool Man really peer pressured me into getting on a stream, and I can't resist a stream with these guys. This is just like the old school almond tree days, except that we're streaming and not on a podunk Zoom meet.
That's true. We used to do a lot more Zoom. The streams get crashed every once in a while, but they get a little
not if
wild.
We don't let them in.
Yeah, if we don't let them in. Oh, hey, Jess is coming to my wedding, by the way. He just RSVP'd.
Dude, this is going to be an unbelievable
rendezvous
confluence of human beings.
Yeah,
I'm extremely excited. This was the event that had to take place for the Avengers to finally get together.
Yeah, not that for some reason none of us will go to the Midwest or anything like that. Well, I don't have like $300 to go to one anyway.
Can you make a name for yours that incorporates unofficially the term estuary?
Okay, in my wedding?
Yes, it's your wedding hashtag. What is your wedding hashtag?
Wet estuary? Wet estuary. I don't think we have one.
I was just kind of kidding around. I didn't think you had one.
Yeah. Well, should we get into this? He looks ready. He looks prepared.
We can try, but it's going to be disastrous for my.
He looks sinister.
This by any means. I told Mitch before I put the presentation up that I would sort of let it be vetted, so to speak. There were two things with that. One is like fatal logical errors, and the other is fatal tonal errors. So far, I've been good reviews about tone, but
oh yeah, flawless.
If there's anything regarding just like something critical that I missed, that it would be embarrassing to kind of put the presentation out without addressing or having seen, or just something that is really like, for example, if there's somebody on whom the arguments just wouldn't land because they have different presuppositions than what I addressed, that would be very important.
I think those are in there, and that's the problem, because I actually want to vet it with you, but I'm not going to be able to do that live right now. Like after 2 days of haphazardly listening to it and taking down notes while I was at work. But I do think I can like participate in that project. But like this stream is not going to be the place where that happens. I mean, I could literally like read these out loud, but I'm just going to be
I respect that. If you don't think that those points really, if you think those points reflect something of your doubts that can be communicated, then we can address them. But if you don't think they do, then don't worry about it.
There's so many of your main kind of thrusts that I feel like it's not that I like disagree with them so much as I'm having a reaction to them that is just that, I really, really want to explore that premise. And I mean, I guess the premise is that, so at one point you say, basically if you assume that, what are the two assumptions that the alien coming to this planet could make? That theology is hard, and that
it's important,
and that alien would arrive at Catholicism as being.
No, I said that. Yeah, well, if those are your only two assumptions and nothing else, right? Yeah. If those are the only 2 points of data that you have, and you have no specific points of data, just these two general facts, then I said it would be most rational to conclude Catholicism based on that, because the general motivation to accept it rises the higher the importance and the difficulty of theology increase, which is what the thought experiment is meant to illustrate, that the strange character is most plausible in the third condition, when theology is both hard and important. So I thought that the thought experiment illustrated that all else equal, the higher we assign these, two variables, the more likely Catholicism becomes as a conclusion. Mm-hmm. But then it decreases, it's demotivated to the extent that you have specific theological doubts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like to actually, one of my favorite points of yours, because those will be easier for me to just kind of roll off live, is basically this bit about I loved your I don't think it's really an exegesis, but your meditations there on Proverbs 3:6 is really probably my favorite part of the presentation.
Okay. Yeah.
And saying, well, if you just have like some kind of doubt that's or some kind of thing that you feel like is contradictory between the Pope's representation of the church's theology and the Bible, then don't you know that you also have that experience when you're reading the Bible? And the point is to not lean on your own understanding.
Well, I was saying that, yeah, so if I'm an alien, so to speak, that's not even a really good metaphor, but if I'm just somebody who all I know is that it's really hard but really important, then all else equal, that's what my thought experiment is meant to illustrate, that the plausibility of Catholicism rises over all of the other different forms. If that's all I have, then that's what I'm going to choose. But if I have theological doubts, that's going to demotivate the case. So the central tug of war is between these two general considerations, which all else equal by themselves tend in the direction of Catholicism. And on the other side, you have just specific theological doubts. But there are general principles of Christianity, of which one is lean not on your own understanding. To the extent that one is following that principle, then it's like seeing, okay, yeah, this makes sense based on the principles of the faith, but I have these specific theological doubts. But then again, if I'm not supposed to lean on my own understanding, there's kind of that, backing away because you have specific theological doubts in your own mind is leaning on your own understanding. Plus, to the extent that theology is hard, it makes the fact that you yourself have doubts sort of less of a reason to back off from Catholicism, because you can't trust the validity of your own theological criticisms.
So I think I'm going to avoid, that makes perfect sense, Cal. I think I'm going to avoid trying to even wrestle with your main premises, which are the ones that I really wanted to, like, in detail, like, go through the level of thinking, or at least 50% of the level of thinking that you put into putting the presentation together before. But I'll just do some kind of casual...
It was actually a lot of thinking, uncharacteristically for me. Because normally I feel like in 1 or 2 weeks, I'm ready to just do something. And I always feel like that's going to be like the highest level that I can understand something is just what I can do in 1 or 2 weeks. But this took months. This was from before the conversations with Weston. It was from before that, a couple of weeks before that. So maybe like April or something.
Well, just casually, I wanted to ask about, I guess, some things that are sort of in the neighborhood of what's happening organically. So Christian nihilist in me, you could say, like, doesn't a person also have to understand, like, the Pope's teachings? You could say, no, all they have to know is that the Pope is in charge. But, like, when you give it the airplane, it can't be that the Joe Catholic is just like, I don't have to think about anything theologically. The Pope has already thought about that. It's under control. Like, what is the Christian even doing in terms of, they're just showing up to the sort of ritualistic parts of maybe just the sort of, I mean, this is not a good word for it, but like the robotic parts of the faith, and just kind of going through the motions there, not having to think about it. Or if they do have to think about it, then they actually do have to try to understand the Pope's dispensation of the theology.
Yeah, so there's two things here. The one is this thing that I really totally failed to communicate in the presentation, because it's not really about that, that because you have an infallible papacy that the Pope is going to be personally free of error in all of his teachings, because that's not even really paradoxically the Catholic teaching. The promise of the papacy is just rather that being in communion with the Pope will always guarantee you being in the true church. But the question of what is the fullness of correct theology in that church, given that the Pope is not guaranteed to be totally free of error in everything he says all the time, Jess, it's not public yet. But
are we doing a good job kind of giving a rundown, or should we kind of try to play through clips of it or something? Or
no, I think it's fine what we're doing right now. So I'm saying, first of all, it's not so much the fact that it's the Pope, and if you copy everything he does, then it's going to be perfect, because that's what the impression is that you get from the thought experiments. Because I said the strange character is the Pope. That was wrong. Really, the strange character represents the church that has the Pope. The Pope might be more analogous to that private warning system that flashes a discrete signal to that person whenever the person does something wrong. So in other words, the Pope is not the whole person or the whole item. The Pope is just a component in the process that helps to keep that church as a whole indefectible. But then there's the question, which is getting into your question of, well, okay, let's say I'm in the church that has the fullness of correct theology, but kind of whose theology is it within the church? Because there's like the more traditional theologies, then there's the sort of post-Vatican II emphases, and yeah, theoretically it's the same theology, but there are differences, and there are epistemological questions within Catholicism that cannot be skirted. Even if, let's say, within Catholicism, for the sake of argument, you're always more accurate than you are outside of Catholicism, which is itself not a totally sort of, that kind of premise is not obviously, guaranteed to be true. And so what I'm saying is that it's really to the extent that you're a theological skeptic. And I think I did kind of make a good case that for better and worse, you can make a really good case that for theological skepticism in this whole thing. Then to the extent that you are a skeptic, then you're just going to choose. It's actually going to kind of bias you in favor of assuming that the Pope is correct on a bunch of things, sort of in the sense of, even like the rabbinic sense of Matthew 16:18, what you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, what you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. The way Christians tend to understand that is well, heaven has a program and the Pope is sort of cued in on it, but the decisions are already made or not made in heaven. But the way the rabbis would have more understood it is, what you say, heaven is going to back it up. So the initiative is with the rabbi. And to me, there's a certain way that it actually kind of makes sense, in the sense that Christian morality, like slavery from the beginning, was not immediately done away with. There's something kind of fluid and plastic about it. The ethics of the Old Testament are rather different from those of the New Testament, but it's the same God with whom everyone is in relationship. To me, it makes sense, because if you have an infinite God, it's not really a static list of do's and don'ts. It's more so about the God in whom you are in, with whom you are in relationship, because everything sort of does get, in this weird way, relativized around our imperfect understanding of a reality which is, we might say, totally absolute and objective nonetheless. So so if I'm just beating that drum all day, theological skepticism, then you can sort of get that sense that you were getting, like, do you really just join the church and turn your brain off? And of course, that's not what it should be. I'm using it to make a point for an argument, but then hopefully it can be a kind of upward spiral where, once you're in the church, you start to learn true stuff. And it can be, just like a kind of, like I said, like an upward spiral, but it's just a particular argument from a particular angle. Where the plausibility rises the more you increase these two variables. And so I increased them a lot for the sake of the argument. I actually don't know that it was wrong to do that. From looking into it, it really made me realize how, in a sense, plastic the theology all is. Mm-hmm. I would kind of lean more toward a certain pietism, but at the same time, not at the expense of believing there is like this kind of fullness of correct theology.
I'm gonna say something random. I don't think you should release it yet because I think it's very much a first draft. Unless you were releasing it to say, please help me vet this and make it stronger. I'm working on a book, or I want to have a really comprehensive presentation. I wanted to say, how do you feel about this idea? I thought several times while I was listening. Let me see if I can get this out. This is such a mistake to try to do live. I thought several times while listening that so you at some point would say like, well, how do you really just need to figure out how to be in communion with Rome, and doing that is basically just like a journalistic act. Like everybody knows that. Any Joe Schmo can know that. You don't have to be theologically experienced or academically rigorous to do that. But it still takes more than Joe Schmo to understand why it is that they should be in communion with the Pope of Rome. And I think the case in point is like your whole presentation, because it's actually pretty dense in a lot of ways. And so if this is like the argument that someone has to understand in order to know that they should be in communion with the Bishop of Rome, then it's still not perspicuous.
So I did say multiple times in the presentation that no, but I'm saying it's there in the presentation. Like I addressed that specific objection right after the revised simple argument.
Yeah, I figured this would be the nature.
But I mean, it's right there. Like how to put it? I'm not trying to be irritable. I'm just saying that so what I in the revised simple argument, I contrasted the there's different ways of knowing that a given church is the true church. None of them are reliable except the way of figuring out who the Pope is. Now, of course, it's not demonstrated that figuring out who the Pope is actually gives you justified true belief that the Catholic Church is true. But the point is, it's the only reliable way.
But it's not demonstrated. Sorry, that's the thing you need to know. Like knowing that that's the thing you need to know takes a bit of a long-winded argument.
No, yeah, that's right. So one of the arguments in the longer presentation was, if there is if this is something important for your walk, including the average person's walk, then there's only one way that's reliable for the average person. So if our premise going in is, and I know this is a premise that you have to accept or reject, but if our premise going in is that this is so important that there would be a reliable way to find it, the only way that has any kind of reliability is the Catholic Church. So that was the revised simple argument. And so again, if you're assuming that the true church has a reliable way of being found, then that's pointing you in the direction of Catholicism, because there's no other reliable way to find the true church. I mean, if you think there's another reliable way, you can let me know.
I do think there are, although I think that's what's going to take some of the footwork on my part in terms of preparation.
Well, just name a way that like people would agree on with the same kind of reliability as they agree on who the Pope is.
Rather than that, because I think that would take some preparation on my part, I guess I want to keep trying to think about why it is that discerning who the Pope is, not who he is, like discerning why a pope and being in communion with him to the average person would be perspicuous. It's still, I still don't understand why just an average person who is compelled by the person of Jesus or has picked up and read the Bible would understand that they should be looking for a pope at all.
I think He's got his mic muted. He's back. Okay, go ahead, Cal.
No, you guys go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, is it so the reason why? Let me see if I can answer, Mitch, and to make sure I'm tracking too. Would be that if you are under the impression that theology is important and hard, and those questions, the question that theology is important continually presses on you more and more and more, and you look into theology, and then you would think, okay, well, I guess especially if you're a Christian and you're trying to find the right Christianity, then if you're like really honed in on that, coming from that angle and having the question of, or the pressure of theology is important, then it would lead you to choose the identity of the Catholic Church. And that would lead you to the Pope.
No. So it's all the stuff I said in the beginning. I mean, it's partly what you said, because I said that. I was at great pains to say that. But what I said in the beginning was, basically, you have two conditions. One condition is where there is no purely structural marker of what the true church is, and one where there is. And what you note about the two cases is that in the first case, where there is a purely structural marker, all somebody has to do to remain in the truth is just submit. Now, they may not have justified true belief that they're in the truth, getting to your earlier point, but they will have true belief. And that's distinguished from the case where there is no purely structural marker, where basically everybody has to think for themselves. The principle is going to be self-reliance.
Yeah.
And so we could, without knowing which condition we're in, we can actually just note the difference between these two conditions, and that's going to have some sort of important implications. Mitch was asking, why would I know that the Pope is guaranteed to bring me in communion with the church? Remember the Inception movie clip where Ken Watanabe says, "You don't know."
The Christian nihilism clip, yeah.
Well, I guess so. I mean, but the point is, you don't know, but he's the only one who can. He's the only purely structural way of identifying what the true church is. So everything else doesn't have acceptable reliability. Everything else, if you tell people just find the true church by doing your theological homework, 9 people, 10 different answers.
Is it theological homework or like one more historical homework?
No, it's basically theological and historical, because in the case where there is no purely structural guide, the only way to know the true church is by knowing who's right on all the theological issues.
But are you sure you're not having, and I do know you address this, but let's just kind of walk through it slowly again. Are you sure you don't have to just do the theological and historical homework to know that you should be in communion with the Pope?
To have justified true belief, yes. So now the thing is, the revised simple argument is, I think, the lowest bar that can be set for justified true belief. Like that is the easiest way to have it at some level of justification without knowing any other theological stuff. If you know that it's important enough for it to be found reliably, there is only one way it could be found reliably, which is if Catholicism is true.
That's the leap that I know the whole presentation is trying to bridge, but that I'm still struggling with.
Well, yeah. What if it's just not that important?
No. I don't think that's the only alternative.
Well, what if it's really important, but God didn't care to make a way for it to be found reliably?
Accepting the premise is that it is important, that it is hard, and that it can be found. Why is it the Pope?
Because there's no other way.
The alien sees that most people who are calling themselves Christians are following this guy, but you dismissed the majority thing. I remember in there.
No. I'm just saying that if you say the way to find the true church is to study the Bible, and then you'll find out which church is true. You're going to get a lot of different answers to the question of which church is true. If you tell people the way to know which church is true is to study history, you're going to get a lot of different answers as to which church is true. If you tell people the way to find the true church is to find out which church is the most beautiful, you'll get different answers to that question because people have different takes on that. If you ask people if you tell people the way to find the true church is find the church that has the holiest people in it, you're going to get different answers to that question. If you ask people who's the Pope, you're not going to get different answers to that question by and large. So I'm saying out of these ways, there's only one way that is reliable in any real degree.
Okay, it always hurts my feelings to be dumb live in front of everybody, but
it's nothing. I think there's something very counterintuitive about the whole thing that a lot of people struggle with.
What if you say like the way to find the one true church is what's the last thing the way to find the one true church is who's the Pope? What if I say the way to find the one true church is like who's Jesus? It's like
you probably get different answers to the question of which church is the true church in light of Jesus' identity, realistically.
Okay. But if you're saying, whoever's in communion with the Pope is this like really though? It's just like an Occam's razor kind of argument. Just
no,
that's it. Or is there something about and the answer I'm already thinking is probably yes. Is there something about a unity of answer that makes something more trustworthy?
No. I'm the simple argument is very simple. It's just saying if there is a reliable way to find it, there's only one reliable way. There's no other reliable way.
I guess I'm calling into question what makes that reliable. Is it only reliable because there's a unity of answers about it?
Yeah, in that sense. I'm sorry if I misunderstood what you're saying, but yeah, because there's a unity of answers. If you ask Jason, if you ask Mitch, if you ask me, if you ask anyone on the street that has a smartphone, they look it up like they look up who's the president of a country.
Okay, I'm going to keep being absurd just because what reputation do I have to protect? If a person says the way to find the one true church is by saying what color the sky is, or why is it? Why does the unity of answers necessarily make?
Well, what would the color of the sky have to offer in the way of information about which church is the true church?
Nothing. But does a unity of answers necessitate a truth?
No, it doesn't necessitate truth. It does necessitate reliability because that's what reliability is. It's there being a unity of answers. And in that argument, all the weight is on the premise that it's so important that there would be a reliable way to find it for the average person. But if there's not a reliable way for the average person to find it, it suggests that like it doesn't make a difference to your walk, or it does, but God cares that only smart people should be able to access it and not average people. That's sort of the implication. It's not necessarily true, but that appears to be this kind of suspicious implication.
Well, if it's not necessarily true, then why? Then that could be the way without theology not mattering. It could be that it's
that's right. That's what I'm saying. There's the analogy to the problem of evil, where it's like, yeah, sometimes you can have a problem and no obvious solution, but that doesn't mean that atheism is true. But all I did in response to that was show how the inference to Catholicism just becomes more likely the more you increase the variables of importance and difficulty. That's all I could really do at that point.
Most Christians believe this is justified true belief. Most Christians believe this is justified true belief.
No.
That Christians uniformly believe this is justified true belief.
Well, I don't see the linkage to justified true belief here.
I think it's just a unified answer that everybody in the world
that establishes that it's a reliable method of finding something, but it does not of itself establish that it's a reliable way to find the true church. For that, you need an additional premise.
Okay,
which is that the true church is so important to find for the average person that God made sure there would be a reliable way for the average person to find it. That's not necessarily true, but the motivation to believe it increases the more you believe in the simultaneous importance and difficulty of theology.
I think I kind of understand with those implications being applied, the conclusion. I'm not sure what to. I just don't know necessarily how you don't wind up somewhere else. I guess thinking about it too, it is the only one religion where there is one guy at the head, or seems to be one guy.
Well, where's somewhere else that I'm going to end up that has a more reliable way of being found?
Well, if you were,
how do I know? Just name a church and tell me how I know that it's true. That's the way that you approach this question.
Well, I was just thinking more broadly, I guess, in terms of like kind of going back to the alien thing. Like if you came here and you were thinking like, oh, God is, the majority of people tell you God is real, then these other implications come in. Theology is important. Well, if theology is important, if the God's loving, like it should be easy for the average person to find. Like, I was just thinking like, well, what if you were Hindu or something? But you did.
That's the whole initial assumption, is that Christianity is the true religion. Otherwise, there's no point.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, well, I mean, I think I'm tracking with you. I think that makes sense to me. That if you ask just about any, I mean, I would assume if you ask any Christian who the Pope is, if they didn't know, they would look it up and get the exact same answer. And that's the unified
and the
answer.
Question of which church you have to be in is to be in communion with the Pope is common knowledge. Like, is the Pope Catholic? That's the phrase.
Yeah. But if you rephrase the question of like, if you ask any Christian which, who's the head of like the Protestant church or something, like you get a myriad of answers or whatever. So you don't really have a unified thing. It would just leave you into more.
Well, no, it doesn't matter. Like I can name a church. Like here, the Moonies. The head of the Moonies church is Sun Myung Moon. There's no doubt about that. But the second point as to does it, I'm not arguing that just because it's easy to find the Pope, that means the Catholic Church is true by itself. Yeah. I said that if it is so important for the average person to find the true church, that there is a reliable way to find it, then this is the only reliable way to find any. This is the only church that, if what it's teaching is true, is offering any kind of reliable way of finding the true church. Because if I take another church and assume that it's the true church, it's still the case. The only way to find it is to have justified true belief in it. Because otherwise you're just guessing. You have to know, and you have to know on the basis of difficult theology, and realistically only like 2% of the people are getting the right answers on that. I mean, that's just totally a made up percentage.
It's only 144,000, I think. So I gotta start over.
That was good, Mitch.
They're all children who do not watch TV.
Can we run that premise back again?
I can for $23,532.
Okay, can someone in the comments get?
Oh my God!
Patreon stat.
I don't even remember that number. Oh, that's amazing.
It was like a number that it has the same digits chiasmatically. It goes.
This is something that I should be doing, like alone in a dark room in my head for like 3 hours. But
it would only be fair because I spent months actually developing the argument.
I feel like I should have listened to it like 10 more times
because I can't even repeat it right now. I'm so muddled. But if then the Pope is when we went through this litany of like if it's the Bible, then if this, then there'd be different answers. If this,
Sure. Yeah.
Repeat this one again.
Okay. What are the different ways that people might say exist that let you know that the true church is the true church, whatever we say the true church is? So, I think that people who say Eastern Orthodoxy is the truth are going to tell you to study church history and to study theology. Baptists are going to say just read the Bible. Eastern Orthodox people might appeal to the beauty of their church too. But whichever one, if we use any of these as the criteria, and
what's one that's really common is the appeal to. I mean,
I think the most common way in practice is for people to see which church is right on all the theological issues, and then you just end up with darts all over the dartboard on that one.
But so
you just kind of end up with and the church you agree with, right? Because if that's the case, you just kind of end up you're leaning on your own understanding, I would think.
Well, sure, but I'm quite apart from anything else. I'm just saying that if you get 9 people playing this game, you get 10 different answers. But that's why we have such a profusion of denominations.
But to get this straight, you're not even saying that knowing who the Pope is the way to determine the true church. You're just saying
it is if Catholicism is true. And only if Catholicism is true is there even a reliable way to find the true church.
But isn't this whole Pope apologetic the way? So is this going in a circle here?
No, because it would be going in a circle if I wasn't leveraging the additional premises that theology is really important and really necessary. Because if it's not important or difficult, rather not important or difficult, then there's no motivation to think that there would be a reliable way to find the true church. But the more important and difficult it is, the more motivation there is to believe there is a reliable way to find the true church.
I know this is going to sound crazy, but could you say the thing again about the Pope? If
beauty is the is that what
you're
talking about?
Okay. No.
Pope, if being in communion with if knowing who the Pope is the way to find the true church.
Yeah.
It's a very reliable way because everybody gives you the same answer.
Because he said before, like if knowing who's the holiest is finding the true church, you'd get a bunch of different answers. If knowing what's most beautiful, you get different answers.
Okay, we got to step in. Because I think I'm right close to what I want to do. If knowing who the Pope is the way of finding the true church, then all you're saying is then that would be a reliable way.
Yeah.
But you're not saying that knowing who the Pope is, or you are saying this, knowing who the Pope is the way to find the true church.
Well, it is the way to find the true church if there has to be a reliable way to find the true church. Because if Catholicism is not true, then there is no reliable way to find the true church.
Oh, well, there's no codifiable way to find the true church. It's maybe
no reliable. I mean, in other words, you get 9 people, it'll be 10 different answers.
Okay, but there's still a reliable way. It's just not
for the average person.
It's not both reliable.
No. I'm saying it has to be reliable for the average person. If I say the way to find the true church is go see which church is right on all the theological issues, is the average person going to be able to do that? Are you going to get 100 people and have them all get the same answer on that?
But can there still be a reliable way for the average person if it's not that? I mean, there could still be what if what if the reliable way is something unfalsifiable, the Holy Spirit guides the people to the true church?
But that's the present situation where you have the Holy Spirit guiding people into 30,000 different churches,
and some reliably into the true church. Right?
What's reliable about? No. It's not reliable if it's only happening in a fraction of cases. Reliable would be.
Why is it then not reliable? It's still.
What does reliable mean?
I think it means statistically reliable.
Oh, if you mean it needs to happen to the majority of people, maybe.
If I have a metal detector that it guides me to gold 1 times out of 1,000, and I just find gold 1 times out of 1,000 anyway, is there anything reliable about that? The one time it did, is it reliable? It's a misuse.
If you have a metal detector that only leads you and Jason to gold, but not to me, it's still reliable.
It's not reliable for the average person. I'm stressing both.
It's not reliable for the majority of people.
For the average person is the way that it's worded. And sure, majority is fine.
Okay.
It doesn't. I wouldn't use reliable and majority in the same sentence. I would just say it doesn't take the majority of people to the same place.
So I do think that premise is baked into your, and maybe even explicitly, because sometimes you'll say things like, if this was the case, then it would seem like God was failing on a massive level because the EO wasn't in these areas or at this time in history and in certain places. So there is a premise baked into this whole argument about there needing to be a majority for it to be a successfully, for it to be reliable.
No, that's kind of it's really misstating the argument. To say that I'm thinking it's creating a strong pressure to believe that the true church would have a majority of believers, which Catholicism does, but in just a paradoxically sort of by a hair, because they have like about half of Christians are nominal Catholics. And so in the strict sense, maybe that's a majority. It's definitely increasing the pressure to believe, the more important you believe theology is, the more that's increasing the pressure, the motivation that the true church would have a majority of believers, but it's not logically guaranteeing it by any means.
Yeah, when I think something unfalsifiable, like, oh, the Holy Spirit would have led them. I mean, this is to somebody like, Philip materialized in the desert or something. And it's like, well, was that a reliable way for the eunuch to find the true church? And
that's not the question, because if you're putting the eunuch in there, that's not the average person. So it's already missing the question. It's already missing the point. Okay. It has to be like, it's an instruction that you could give.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone.
So that's why I say this is something you're trying to and I don't mean this pejoratively, but it's something you're trying to codify into. Like if somebody asked you, hey, how can I know what the true church is? Then you would have something in your pocket to kind of instruct them.
I guess just in the sense, I mean, if that's the logical requirement for something being reliable for the average person, then yes. But I just want to keep the focus on the average person. Well, it could be that doing all your theological homework is a very reliable way of finding the true church, but only for like 1% of the population.
Yeah, I wondered at times, is the average person even asking such a question?
It doesn't matter.
And I remember at some point you said the what the church does, should the average person is exactly who the church is trying to help. Mm-hmm. But if the average person isn't doing these calculuses at all, right?
Right.
The average person maybe.
Do you think Catholicism got so big by using the revised simple argument? No, that's why in the second argument,
I remember you saying one of the rebuttals that you anticipated was that most people did not become Catholic because of this.
Yeah, but it's kind of beside the point. I talked about the factors that really get people to join a church and stay in it, and I talked about how there's a motivation to believe that providentially these things would have been maximized, as they appear to have been in the case of Catholicism.
What is the sort of the point of this whole project, would you say?
Just to find out which church is the true church.
Yeah.
If you can.
But not in some dumb way where I just take every single church and outline all of their theological errors.
Yeah.
Like everybody else seems to think is the point of the game.
Leaning on your own understanding.
I have a question.
No, because it's just so inelegant as a proof, and I say this leaning totally on my own understanding.
Oh, this is Is this just an aesthetic project, Cal?
It's completely aesthetic.
Mm.
It's not going to be a patchwork quilt. If it's the case that every single issue is breaking in favor of one church,
can you monetize it? Okay.
Whether or not I know what that church is, there's got to be a reason why every single time the coin is coming up heads. It's not a coincidence. So I want to know what that one reason is.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. There is a lot that I want to talk about with it. Well, I guess I'll let Jason talk for a while because I shouldn't even be
talking. I'm not necessarily trying to argue. You probably addressed this in your thing.
We all have to say that, right?
Yeah, we have to preface that. But so if you were just going off the, like the most reliable answer thing, like if someone were to ask that question, well, what if someone asked it? I just hear this a lot. It's probably one of my least favorite. I don't necessarily like it, but the argument people give for the Eastern Orthodox Church being the one true church is they'll go to the specific moment in history where there was a split or something. Would that be kind of a universal answer too? If they were like pointing to that, the one true church is this moment. He does.
Well, so yeah, if you go to that point in time, like 1054, which is not, there was no one punctiliar year where the split happened, but
yeah,
if you go to that point in time, there were some issues that were relevant at that time, like the filioque, like whether or not you should have unleavened or leavened bread in the Eucharist, whether or not priests can be shaved. These are the things that mattered back then. The papacy was not really that much of an issue back then. Everybody sort of took it for granted.
Right, because you say you guys are following the Pope all the way up to this point, and then suddenly you decide to disagree on your own understanding about the filioque.
Kind of looks like that.
So, I guess I did want to hear more because I know you alluded to
But just to quickly answer what Jason is saying, so that this doesn't become pointless, if that's the standard, the point is, first of all, that's only what people who are discerning between Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy are going to focus on. It is decisive for that question, but for Protestants, it's totally unconvincing either way. Whoever you think was right on that, Protestants will tend to think Catholics were right because they're coming out of the Western inheritance, but it doesn't really matter. A Protestant could have all Eastern Orthodox theology and just not follow any bishop. Protestantism, you can do whatever you want. But the point is, the second question is that reliable? Because people will go to the filioque and different people will draw different conclusions on that. Different people have different levels of intelligence and education. That's a very hard debate to understand.
Yeah, I guess it would be in the way that you would phrase the question, because if you're phrasing it in a way of like, the one true church is the church that believes this about the filioque, that's one thing. But if you're saying, no, the one true church is like this point in history, not regarding the beliefs, like it is this split here, like then, well, I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to think of I'm trying to think of if I'm just trying to go through my head, which I know you probably already did because you've had months on this. I'm thinking if there is another question that could be framed to where you would get a unanimous answer, like the Pope.
If there was, it would sink the whole argument. So by all means, search away.
So no.
So no.
If this is the time to catch it.
I don't
embarrass myself.
That's why I'm trying to think of one, but I don't know that I can. I'm trying.
Well, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah. Because I feel like a cheap one would be like
the way is agreeing that Christ died on the cross.
Or like I was thinking like
because Christians don't agree on that. That's why we have so many different churches.
You could take any tiny little like minutia of.
You could just say it's the one where the priests don't shave, and then they'd just be Orthodox.
Well, you can have like a structural way, a non-theological way, but other than the Pope, but The Pope has at least some plausible grounding in Matthew 16, in various church father quotes.
That's what I wanted to ask about,
sense.
because does EO or some Protestants maintain that the Pope was a innovation?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That is really interesting, because all the points you went through could also be applied to the Pope. Like, you would get answers on that. Like, if you were to ask who's the most holy, like, some people would answer the Pope. A lot of people probably wouldn't.
So now we know that some Christians would say that there's not a Pope in response to the question of who's the Pope. Like,
totally. That's just in the case that Catholicism is not true. And in the case that Catholicism is not true, there's no reliable way to find.
Can we go back to that one premise that I've asked us to repeat a bunch of times?
Jason is angry. Did I make Jason angry?
No. If there's no reliable way to find the church. What?
No, but I mean, is there though? Because if there is, you tell me.
If the reliable way to find the true church is knowing who the Pope is, then it's suddenly debunked by the fact that some people would say there's no Pope, right? Not every the reason that works is because every Christian would say
no. It's not, because it's a disjunctive argument. So you have two cases: the case where Catholicism is not true, and the case where Catholicism is true.
It does seem like a very good argument. Like, the more I'm sitting here listening to you, it just seems like even with the thoughts of relying on your own understanding versus not relying on your own understanding.
Did you listen to the whole thing, Jason? Because the second part is all about that. I don't think you listened to that.
I did listen to the second part.
You listened to the whole thing?
I listened to the whole thing.
The fact that you didn't listen.
Okay. So yeah, that
you
that
said
for
earlier,
someone who really knows the Bible, that last part is actually going to be the persuasive part.
There's something that's not sitting well with
before
me
we started this live stream, Cal said no one should ever watch a movie twice in their life. And yet I have to listen to his presentation like 20 times.
Correct. That's true. That's exactly.
That's really funny. But okay, I've got to go back to this argument. If the reliable way to find the true church for the average person is knowing who the Pope is, I can't assume when I ask that question that Catholicism is already true, because the outcome of this question is going to tell me whether Catholicism is true. And
so, I mean,
it's going to have that outcome if
you're only looking at that
everybody
one premise.
Says, well, I mean, it's just one. I mean, it's just one.
No. But the point is to leverage an additional premise, so it's not a circular argument. But here's an important thing you could say. You could say if baptism, if like being a Baptist, if Baptist theology is true, then there is a reliable, purely structural way to find the true church, which is just find any church that is a member of the Southern Baptist Association of Churches. And so
the question becomes nonsense if every time you're asking it, you're presupposing that whatever that answer is.
No, it doesn't. It does not nonsense if it turns out that in no other case is there even a reliable way to find the church. And when it comes to, the Southern Baptist Association of Churches, there's nothing in the Bible or anything or anywhere that makes you think that this has to be a guarantee of being able to find the true church. Whereas at least with the papacy, there is something. Well, you got Matthew 16, you've got church father quotes, you've got things that were said in various authoritative councils, about 3 of them. And the point is, it may not be decisive all by itself, but it's not nothing. For everything else, it's basically nothing.
Does that become a lot of theological homework to do to get to that conclusion, though?
Yes, it does. But I'm saying if you want justified true belief, this is probably the easiest way to get it. But as a matter of fact, Catholicism did not grow as large as it did by using these considerations, and I fully acknowledge that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a great listen, that's for sure.
Sorry, Jason, I didn't realize. See, I would have thought you would have just kind of crapped out after 2 hours. I didn't think you would have listened to the part that I knew you would really enjoy, which is the last part.
All Jason does is listen to long form podcast.
Yeah, I listen to all of it. I did listen to it on 1.5 times speed, and like Mitch, it was when I was doing other things too, so I'm sure I missed a ton of stuff, and I only got to listen to it once so far.
I did listen to a good 50 minutes of the first one twice. I mean, I'll probably be revisiting it because I still want to like actually like, instead of just kind of trying to like do this in real time, really, especially like this idea of a true church, I really want to get to the bottom of. And that's ground zero of the whole thing. But thinking about,
I mean, if there is no true church, then we don't have to talk about it.
You think there is, but
right.
Understanding what we both mean by that, and I mean, and even that to an extent becomes.
Well, I don't know that we even the three of us necessarily disagree on what that might be. But the reliability of how to find it, we might disagree on.
Well, if every church can be the true church, then is there such? Do we mean anything when we say there is a true church? So it's necessarily positing the idea of a restriction in the set of churches,
and a fullness, which I think a lot of people are more comfortable thinking that their church is true, but not operating in the fullness. Maybe.
Yeah. I just tried to be as agnostic about that as possible, and just say that, if by true church we mean sort of any restriction in the set of churches, any smaller circle that we draw in the Venn diagram, then that's what I mean by it.
Well, we're talking about church as just a body, the ecclesia of Christians.
It's in the dictionary, Jason.
I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about a dictionary definition, not so much a like you will know them by their fruits type definition. I feel like if that's the case, you're having to look at like some sort of spiritual seed, and then it's
part of their fruits is being in communion with the Pope.
That's right.
Well, Cal, besides us, like actually, doing our homework and coming back
doing your theological homework.
No, vetting this like proper, like on our own time. Is there anything in real time that you like in terms of questions or things you wanted to dig into in real time that would be helpful, or since we're just hanging out?
Let me see. I don't know. I mean, as far as the Bible, I just reread Jonah. I just reread Zechariah, and I reread John, Gospel of John. Just kind of very slowly just reread these things.
You're missing.
I don't think I have any.
Books. You're missing 63 books, and it shows.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, for Catholics, I would be missing like 70 books or something.
Yeah. I didn't want to try to venture it because I knew I didn't know the
I still. Oh yeah. What about Job?
Oh yeah.
Jess has got that.
What
one
about?
We don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, my great grandmother said that Job was the most complicated book in the Bible,
and she said John was the easiest, right? Which is
she said interestingly, and she reads this book like crazy, like you, Jason. Like, there's the only person I know personally that reads it like on the level that you do. She said that none of the New Testament felt very complicated to her.
Okay,
so,
and she reads it like. I don't read as much as I used to. I need to. I still read Ecclesiastes once a week, but
she reads it about twice a year.
The whole Bible? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh! Yeah, I wish I could get back to that. No, I haven't been reading very much at all.
But I was interested, and she called me 2 more times to talk about it, and because I told her I was going to ask more people, kind of survey my friends, and she's like, I don't think anybody else is going to say Joe. I was like, I don't know. I mean,
that's really interesting that she would say that, because I feel like maybe on its surface level, reading it has
more of a traditional narrative, but when you dig in,
as soon as you start thinking, like I feel like as soon as you start critically thinking about the scriptures, that you just the New Testament alone, or just one book of John, one book that John wrote, doesn't matter which one.
Well,
just hold one verse into your head and don't let go of that one, and then read the next verse and try to think that both are true. And it's like, what the heck? You just said opposite things.
I had thought about this when I was listening to Cal's presentation, which is basically that there are individuals who aren't like just cognitively vibrant, or who seem to like understand. And I'm saying, like, from my perspective, they seem to understand. So that's even like leveraging my own understanding on it. But like, they seem to understand, like, because I remember when you first told me that John was really difficult, I was like, that can't be right. It's the first book I ever read. I understood this when I was a child, revisited it, and did feel that it was very complicated. But I do think it's something like the having the mentality of a child, or becoming like a little child. You're able to really engage these in a
yeah. I wonder if she thinks Paul's epistles are kind of simple. Like, I could see the Gospels, reading them and then feeling pretty simplistic.
I felt that they were simple when I first read them in like ninth grade or something.
I would think the same thing, but then after I revisit them over and over, I feel like it's weird. I feel like you can make them extremely complex, and they are extremely complex, but the overall narrative I feel like the overall narrative of the entire Bible is incredibly simple, and the overall narrative theology is incredibly simple. But
at some level,
I think it is. I really think it is a monad. Like,
I think there's people in all churches that definitely get the childlike simplicity aspect of it. That you would call holiness. And I said the problem is that they're pretty much equally holy in every church. So I didn't say that only Catholics get this.
No,
I said that it's just more consistent with the principles of this.
I think
to
maybe
submit rather than think for yourself all the time.
What I'm failing to appreciate, and maybe you can confirm or deny this, but this seems, it's very, very specific to you, cool man. This whole thing, this whole argument that you do, this whole argument that you're building is like, it's something that's deeply, not that it is without objectivity, it's engaging with objective truths, but it's crafted for you to find the true church. Does this make sense?
Perhaps, but I don't know why it wouldn't apply to other people. I mean, if other people would look at all the churches and say, well, to me, it's just obvious that only this one church has the only holy people, then I couldn't reach them with my argument, because it's not one of the premises of the argument.
I think it's for more people, because that's what I mean, where I kind of, in the past, I have gotten quite annoyed with people coming to me with this premise. Not annoyed, I guess, is probably that's too strong of a word. But where I feel like there's a lot of people out there looking for the one true church. Especially, and I think that's why there's been such a flux of Eastern Orthodoxy. But a lot of times you hear that they found Eastern Orthodoxy through YouTube. And I'm like, that's what turned me away from it. Like, really, I don't, like, that is literally what, and I'll tell, like, my priest now, and before I got baptized and stuff, I was talking to him and I said, I didn't want to be Orthodox. And I was like, I'm tired of people talking about it.
Yeah, cool man's argument, if it's published on YouTube, or even if it's incidentally like consumed right here, may lead many people to Catholicism.
Oh no!
I don't think my channel doesn't get a lot of traffic. I shared it with a couple of people who I hoped would watch it. They didn't watch it because only my real ride or dies watch my arguments. But well, and at this point I'm leaning toward publicizing it because I don't see anything in the way of a fatal objection right off the bat. I'm
sure that give me 5 days.
5 days.
Yes. That's a long time. I haven't had a chance. My car's breaking down.
Well, I mean, I guess what I would say is you can definitely engage with it and take it down after it's public, because it's going to be about as obscure in either condition.
Well, the thing is, and what I would have gone on to say, I guess, is like if Cal's presentation leads a lot of people to Catholicism, to me, I'm like very happy about that. So I don't know.
I'm not if it's false, which means you should step up your game and falsify it. But
I don't think it's like false enough. I know it's like maybe a bad way of looking at things.
A brand new Taking Back Sunday feud here between Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. That's what it kind of feels like a lot.
The church is going to be unified again, one way or another. Maybe it's through Cal's presentation. Maybe it's through some unreliable Holy Spirit metal detector, but it's going to happen.
Mm.
That
Well, I've got Job pulled up on Chabad. I just trying to plug my mouse back in.
We're reading Job.
Because Jess wants to.
Okay.
Yishai wants to.
Read chapter 7. Start there. Just skip
chapter 7 of Job.
Skip the beginning parts. There,
Oh gosh.
You could actually just go to like 30, 36, right? Skip all the whiny parts.
736.
Has there really not been a
adaptation
of Job at this time? I
Has
mean, why haven't you seen some Shakespearean level stage adaptation of Job? I mean, it lends itself to the stage so well.
Ice Maker just scared me. I thought it was a ghost.
I love the Ice Maker. It's such a cozy domestic sound.
Yeah.
It just kind of rumbles out.
Can y'all hear me on this?
What a crazy thing, being able to make ice in your fridge. Yes.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Do you hear me equally? You only hear me when I talk into this, right?
It's much more clear when it's up to
you. Yeah. Some janky gift some guy gave you.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just totally anonymous admirer sent this in.
Please
I mean,
stop sending my friend trash in the mail.
Send better microphones.
This is an outrage.
It's supposed to be 736.
No. I just said I was joking. I mean, I do like chapter 7 if I remember right, but then I said chapter 36.
Oh.
Just skip all the whiny parts. But I was kidding.
There is no chapter 36 in Job. Oh, there is. Okay, I don't know.
It's like 40.
Oh,
40
I thought there was. Yeah, wait. Guess for real. What? How many? I'm guessing 42.
Oh, I was gonna say it. I'll do 41. You can be right.
You don't have to be wrong. You can guess the same number. How many is it? I don't know my Bible.
I'm looking, but I won't get there. This is a Bible drill.
Luke Thompson was right. You become Eastern Orthodox, and then you just stop reading the Bible.
It's a good old-fashioned Bible drill right now. 34, 37, 38, 40, 42. You got it.
I should recant that, by the way. I don't know that Luke Thompson really said that. I don't want to put words into his mouth.
Jess is talking about. Has he read Job?
Has he even read Job?
It's cool to be famous for it's cool to be the Job guy.
I know, literally. I think if you type Job into Google, I'm pretty sure
his SEO is. I'm
going to do it real quick. Let me see. I'm going to put.
Oh, you can't do it into yours because yours is going
to
favor Jess.
Is
you have to put it into
Bible
a
video?
YouTube.
Oh no, he's not number 1. He did come up on here before though. Oh man, that's embarrassing. Up your game. Is that John Cena? John Cena talking about Job. It was just some guy that looked like John Cena. It's not really him.
Oh man.
All right, are we reading this? I need a Bible. This sucks.
I'm already here on Job chapter 36.
How much are you gonna read the entire thing?
Chapter 36 or 7?
Look,
we want something mournful.
36.
Can't be bothered. I can't be bothered.
Why wouldn't you just start at chapter 1?
He said not 36.
I don't
That's
know.
probably.
I mean, no. Okay, let's choose the. Let's get Jess in this chat because we're talking about Job.
Oh yeah, is he gonna get in here? Yeah, let's get him in here.
Drop the link so that Yishai Purviance can come in here.
Get in here. Well, okay. While you guys are doing that, I'm gonna go get my Bible out of the car or something at least because I can't find my.
Now I have to wait 25 minutes while Jason goes and buys a Bible to pretend he had one all along. See if he can find an open.
They took it from me when I got baptized into the Eastern Orthodox Church. They were like, "You don't need this anymore."
I'll be right back too.
Well, I guess there's who's okay. Very good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you just slightly lagged.
Oh, okay, maybe it'll catch up. Hey, Cal.
What's up, dog?
What's up?
I've got the Jewish Publication Society Bible pulled up right here on Chabad.org. So we can go to the source.
I was going to Safaria.org.
Safaria, there you go.
Tanakh. And go down to Job.
Yes.
Well, also, let me show you this.
Maybe I should go on Bible Hub Interlinear.
It's the book of Job, but it's like parallel English and Hebrew with commentary.
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
It's pretty epic.
That's cool. Oh, you're glitching up now, Mitch. What happened?
Uh-oh, Mitch is a robot.
How did this happen? What was I going to say? Oh, we could talk about Whataburgers. No takers.
Whataburgers?
Right. I don't know why it just took me like yesterday. I texted these guys and said that I'd never put it together that was like what a burger. When you see Whataburgers, like I don't, that was, like I just always heard people say Whataburgers. I was like, it sounds more like water burgers to me or something. I literally just put it together 2 days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. I don't know.
I feel like I need to start a restaurant just called like, man, this is a really great burger.
Yeah, there you go. What are we reading? Which one? I got my Bible now.
Are you seriously wanting to read something out of Job?
I'm okay with it. Cal, you're muted. Were you saying something funny?
Jess has to tell us which part of Job we're going to.
I don't know. Are we just doing something random?
No, we're doing what you choose, which is not random.
Let's do 14.
Okay.
Oh, is it sad? I hope it's sad.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
Jess knows every single chapter of Job like the back of his hand. He didn't choose this.
No, I know I've been working on this music project where I've been writing music to Job, and I'm up to chapter 18. And then after I make the tracks, I listen to them over again. So I know 1 through 18 really well.
But he's not like that woman that memorized the entire text of Job.
No,
she's on a different level.
Oh, I tried to I emailed her to see if she wanted to chat, but she didn't respond.
Oh yeah, see there you go. He got curved by a status rocket ship YouTuber, as I did, which
Mitch?
Say love you. I know I said which, not Mitch.
Wait, what do you mean? Rocket ship YouTuber?
No, I mean he just got curved by someone who is too high status to talk to him.
Oh, gotcha.
I know. I gotta like stay with my own kind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not allowed to talk to
down here in the gutter where you belong.
She like went to Cambridge or something. I'm just like, I guess I can't talk to Cambridge people.
Did Mitch say where he went? Is he
I was texting him and see if he's coming back.
He's just watching Steel Magnolias again.
Come back, friend. No, I don't know what he's doing. Hopefully he's not watching another movie. Are you watching another old lady movie? I don't know. We'll see if he comes back. I also I'm trying to get Craig to show up too. Who knows if he'll come? But yeah, so 14. I got it here.
Yeah, I got it pulled up.
Does one of us want to read? Want me to read?
I can read.
Okay.
I got ESV. If that's cool. Whatever that.
That is cool.
All right. This is Job speaking. He's already spoken chapter 13. He's going on for 14. Actually, 12, 13. And now he's into 14. Okay. Man who is born of a woman is few of days and full of trouble. He comes out like a flower and withers. He flees like a shadow and continues not. And do you open your eyes on such a one and bring me into judgment with you? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? There is not one. Since his days are determined and the number of his months is with you, and you have appointed his limits that he cannot pass, look away from him and leave him alone, that he may enjoy like a hired hand his day. For there is hope for a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that its shoots will not cease. Though its root grow old in the earth, and its stump die in the soil, yet at the scent of water it will bud. Mitch is back.
Mitch is back. There you are. It still looks a little... No, I think you're doing better.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I can hear you. Cal got some more OJ. Everybody's ready.
OJ.
Brushes his teeth, drinks a glass of orange juice.
I'm
still laughing about that joke. Cal's the type of guy who brushes his teeth. Oh, that was good. Okay. Sorry. We just got to the tree part. The tree has potential to live.
Job 14. I'm going to start at 7. That's where the tree part starts. For there is hope for a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that its shoots will not cease. Though its root grow old in the earth, and its stump die in the soil, yet at the scent of water it will bud, and put out branches like a young plant. But a man dies and is laid low. Man breathes his last, and where is he? As waters fail from a lake, and a river wastes away and dries up, so man lies down and rises not again. Till the heavens are no more, he will not awake, or be roused out of his sleep. Oh, that you would hide me in Sheol, that you would conceal me until your wrath be past, that you would appoint me a set time, and remember me. If a man dies, shall he live again? All the days of my service I would wait till my renewal should come. You would call, and I would answer you. You would long for the work of your hands, for then you would number my steps. You would not keep watch over my sin. My transgression would be sealed up in a bag, and you would cover over my iniquity. But the mountain falls and crumbles away, and the rock is removed from its place. The waters wear away the stones, the torrents wash away the soil of the earth. So you destroy the hope of man. You prevail forever against him, and he passes. You change his countenance and send him away. His sons come to honor, and he knows it. He does not know it. They are brought low, and he perceives it not. He feels only the pain of his body, and he mourns only for himself.
Yikes. Yeah, that's fine.
For whatever reason, that's a lot more poetic than the translation that I was reading, which is the Jewish Publication Society translation, which suggests they might have taken some liberties with the translation.
I like ESV.
I like the ESV too.
ESV is beautiful.
Yeah.
Whenever I read it to Yosef, he complains, and then I have to go to my my Jewish book.
Yeah, like if I'm
Hebrew
looking
book.
at here on Chabad, like number 14, it says, "If a man dies, will he live?" Well, I guess that's implied there. again, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, because he's talking about the tree that is cut down and that at the scent of water it will bud again. But man doesn't have that hope.
Right. My transgression, this one says, my transgression is sealed up in a bundle and you have attached yourself to my iniquity, which is interesting because you said covered. So if I go to, this is kind of a different idea, really. Maybe not though. I don't, by inference or implication. You in the interlinear Bible Hub, whatever, it says it's cover. I should get my phone out here because then I'll have
in this other translation it says the bundle of my transgression is sealed and you plaster over my iniquity. And it's actually, it says here that this expression refers back to, in the verse before, you would not watch over, so that it means you would not watch over my iniquity the way that you watch over now and plaster it over.
Well, this Bible app that I have, the Bart Bible app, it says it's from the root of tafal, which is to stick on as a patch, or like to sew up, like as a patch, like with the patch. You patch it up. So I don't think plaster is super wrong if that's what the root is.
Well, and the one thing you need to know about Job is if the author has a choice to use a word that has more than one meaning that makes sense, he'll use it.
Is that, I mean, I feel like all Hebrew is maybe like that, but maybe Job is especially like that. I don't know.
Yeah, Job is especially like that. And I'm actually reading this book by this one guy who says that some of the more obscure words that kind of only happen in the book of Job, he thinks, and he makes arguments for that they're like purposefully misspelled to mean two or three different things, depending on how you read it. And so they'll add an extra letter, and if you ignore this letter, it means this. If you have this letter, it means that. Or it may have like I don't really know anything about Hebrew, but if you have this suffix, that word doesn't appear anywhere, but because you know what that suffix means, then you can sort of infer what the meaning of the word is.
It's wordplay that you could do in English too.
Yeah, so like he uses the example in Alice in Wonderland. Alice says curiouser and curiouser. And curiouser is not a word, but you understand what it means. Like you're just more and more curious. And then he actually makes an argument that some of the words are just made up, like in the Jabberwocky poem, where it's supposed to have a meaning just by the way it sounds, rather than there's not a definition, but you'll just I guess it's more apparent in the Hebrew.
Jason wants to come in.
Yep.
I want to come in. Okay.
Where'd Mitch go?
So it's like he said, sorry guys, internet wouldn't hold up, enjoyed it. I guess he's out. I thought that maybe it was more poetic, or not poetic, it's not the right word. I guess more vague on the words and definitions, just because maybe the language was more ancient. So I thought it was supposed to be one of the most ancient books, but it sounds like you're saying it's more intentional than not. Like the author of it was actually trying to do it intentionally.
Yeah, well, that's one way of seeing it. I'm actually that same guy it's fresh in my mind because I'm reading his book. He actually thinks that Job is written later, but it's written in a way it's supposed to sound old. So it would be like now writing a Western that sounds old and Western, or writing a period piece, and you're putting it back into the Renaissance or the Victorian times, and then you would use Victorian sounding things, and it may not even sort of be totally accurate, but you're playing on
Yeah.
trope.
Yeah, a certain style of speaking. There was a Western that did that actually recent. Well, not recently. It was probably like 15 years ago now. It seems recent. I can't remember what it was.
Cowboys and Aliens.
Yeah, that was it. No, it had I think it had Matt Damon in it though. I think I can't remember. I don't know. It'll come to me later. But yeah, okay.
But it's written to be like, oh, this is from a long time ago. It's from a story.
Yeah,
a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Do you think overall, this is not specific to this chapter, but do you think overall that this book wrestles with nihilism the most?
Yeah, it gets pretty existential. And this is before like necessarily a consensus about what happens in the afterlife. There's a concept of Sheol.
Yeah,
totally. It's not obvious there's a resurrection here, so it does feel very nihilistic.
Well, I kind of wonder that too. Like, when is it obvious there is a resurrection? Like, when? I mean, like I was saying, I'm a Christian,
Daniel.
so I'm supposed to believe it. Yeah, well, you read that. Like, I've never seen anybody get
Some
up.
will rise to everlasting life, and others to everlasting shame. It says that in Daniel.
Yeah, I know.
The dry bones getting put back together.
That could just be a metaphor, dog.
No, yeah. No, I guess. Do you understand what I'm asking though? Like, kind of like, like we mentioned before we were talking about it. Like, I don't know if there's any possible way to prove I'm not a brain in a vat or something like that. Like, is there any possible way to prove that there is a resurrection right now, other than just faith or other than just hope? Almost.
It's not about proof. It's about does the Bible say it?
Exactly. Which is why we skip ahead to Daniel. Okay, yeah. So we haven't gotten to Daniel yet, so we don't know.
Well,
right.
And you can see him.
You skipped ahead.
You see him playing with the idea of it, and he actually grounds it right here in the memory of God, because he says, he says, a tree could bud after it's been chopped down, but man's not like that. But what could a man live after he dies? He sort of asked that, but then he says, if only you would hide me in the underworld, conceal me until your wrath be past, set a limit for me and remember me. And so he says it, and it really comes down to the way I understand it is, if God could imagine me and create me, then after I'm gone, he could remember me and I would come back.
That's super interesting. Yeah, the concept of memory being evidence for a resurrection, or pulling from the past.
And and the interesting thing is, as soon as he gets to this place where he's like, this is a possibility, he kind of remembers what has happened to him, and he says, but the mountain falls and crumbles and the rock is removed from its place, meaning like water wears away the slopes. You overpower him and he departs. You change his face. You send him away. You destroy the hope of man, is what he's saying. He's like, this is a hope I could have, but you destroy it. And so what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so we're still in the middle of the book of Job. So he's you can feel him wrestling this out.
Yeah.
It's kind of good because Job would kind of suck if he was consoled by the fact that, like, in other words, if Job was in modern times and a Christian dude lost his, wife, his truck, his dog, his house, everything, his friends would say, well, you know what, you're going to get crowns in heaven or something. Just remember that earth is not your heaven is your home, not earth. The end. But in Job, there's no sort of promise of consolation like that. So, but which is really like, in this life, you almost don't care that there is a heaven if you're struggling enough in this life. So Job cannot potently speak to those concerns if he can just punt to the resurrection. Yeah.
Well, in ancient times, if you had children and like you got sick or whatever, you'd be like, oh, at least my children are alive, and they'll continue on, and they would have that consolation. But his children are dead, and so this was what sort of it ruins any sort of hope.
14 brand new kids at the end, though. But yes,
right. But this is why his imagination goes.
They were newer kids, so they were better kids.
if he had children still alive, he wouldn't have spoke any of this. He would have just been like, it's now my time. When God takes me, he'll take me. I imagine that would be it. But since these children are gone, his imagination then goes these places, and he says these things,
right?
Which I think is important, because how, it says something about how we sort of discover these metaphysical truths, or we stumble upon, the deep questions that we actually want to ask, that maybe we don't even know we want to ask until we're desperate or something. But you may have heard me say this, but I think this is I think Job understands this in the end, because he has the 10 new children. So in the beginning, he has 7 sons, 3 daughters. And then in the end, he has 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he talks about in the book how God makes people in the womb at conception. He's like, I know, you've made me, and even in his lament, he's like, why did you make me in the womb? But so there's already this establishment that God makes you who you are from that starting point. And the odds that he would have 10 more kids, that exact number, and then the exactly 7 sons and 3 daughters again, means that God remembers the other children. And I actually think it's a proof for Job, and it's not even a quick one that God answers, because after he's restored, it takes 12, 15 years to have 10 kids, and over that period of time, it's just slowly, could it be, like, what are the odds, like? And then when that 10th kid is born, and it's a girl or whatever, and he's just like, I don't believe it. Like, I don't.
Yeah, so God is kind of hinting or telegraphing a resurrection, but he's reserving the right, in the way that he tends to do, to just kind of keep his cards close to the vest for some reason that we don't know.
He's so subtle for
yeah.
He's very
like, I want to tell you that there's a resurrection, but I would prefer that you would just believe that there is one without me having to tell you, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, even if he said, we'd be like, maybe.
Until you really suffer for it.
Until we see like him actually do it. And there's even like midrashes that are like the children are actually reincarnated.
Of course.
Like he gets the children back, stuff like that even.
The Gilgul Neshamot, something like that.
What?
What's that?
The reincarnated souls.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
When Judaism sort of took a sort of Hinduistic turn,
well,
the resurrection wasn't enough.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that I'm just so tired. I'm like, this can't be my first life. I'm like, this has got to be like, I've got to be on 10 or something.
Yeah.
You're like, literally on life 1.
Yeah, like I'm 37. Like, I feel like I'm like Like this has got to be 105 already. What's going on?
Nope, you're one of the new ones. You're one of the new batch.
Yeah. Well, we were straight up raised with the idea of reincarnation. Like I'm one of the very few Americans that was. We believed in reincarnation and karma. Mm-hmm. One thing that kind of occurs to me now as a sort of no longer Hare Krishna, but a sort of amateur philosopher is like, because they would tell us like if you mess up in this life, you're going to take birth in your next life as like an animal or something. So if you're a human, it's a very narrow window of opportunity to get right with God, because if you're a squirrel, you can't even think about God. And so, you know, I think about what is we believed that the soul is something that it doesn't have any effects on anything, nor is it affected by anything. And that makes sense, because if I can be reincarnated as a squirrel and have like no memory of my previous existence and nothing like human intelligence in my squirrel form, it must be because the soul doesn't have any effects. It's just something that doesn't do anything, right? And
yeah, it doesn't.
But something that has no effects and isn't affected by anything is not really distinguishable from something that doesn't exist. And if you take the case where you know, I am me in this life, and in my next life I'm a squirrel because my soul goes into that squirrel. This is case A. In case B, I'm me in this life, I die, and the same squirrel is born right after I die. But this time it's not me because my soul doesn't go into it. What is, other than my verbal stipulation that in one case my soul is in the squirrel and then in another case my soul is not in the squirrel, what is there to meaningfully distinguish between these two cases? There's a
Schrodinger squirrel.
Well, I don't mean it to be a superposition of squirrel cases. I'm just simply saying that even if I'm saying that my soul is in the squirrel, it seems to be a difference that makes no difference.
Well, you would have to be outside of the situation and then remember back to when you were.
Yeah, exactly. If the soul sort of comes up for air between lifetimes, then a different sort of argument can be made for a kind of continuity or preservation of identity. And I used to have thoughts about this that were involved enough that I had serious reservations about even saying that, but I don't think I can really recall that right now. The sort of the soul coming up for air hypothesis, what sort of problems that might have. Mm-hmm. That was kind of what we believed. Yeah, that was kind of what we believed. Soul comes up for air, so to speak. Because like in between lifetimes, he thinks about it and he regrets it. Like, damn, I was a human.
You're unchanged. You can only change in life, and so you go to try to do good in life because you can't do it when you're coming up for air.
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of arbitrary like that. I mean, the idea is that whatever you think about it at the moment of death is what you become. So if I have ADD in this life and I'm dying on the battlefield and my last thought is, oh look, squirrel, then I'm gonna become a squirrel. And but in between lifetimes I'm sort of like realizing, oh, I'm becoming a squirrel. Shoot, I really should have lived my life differently because now I'm going to be a squirrel.
Train my mind to think of something better.
Yeah, and when I'm a squirrel, then I'm gonna just be forced to kind of ascend linearly up the hierarchy of animal life forms, even though my soul is theoretically coming up for air in between each lifetime and like knowing and remembering all of its previous lives. I have no idea how it's kind of bizarre. It doesn't actually really make a whole lot of sense. I think reincarnation, where you say there is a retention of memory, is in a different category. I think that it becomes more plausible. I don't think it can be dismissed so readily. Or I don't think, but reincarnation without the preservation of memory, it has certain kind of a priori kind of problems, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that the Jewish conception of reincarnation certainly at least allows for the retention of memory, but But there is a way of, here's another thing that you could, I mean, not that we're not
Scientology does. You have to get rid of all the bad memories.
Yeah, well, they're critically, it's they're other people's memories, but like that's kind of the point, which is that if you wanted to say in the first case that my memories are veridical memories of a previous life that my soul lived in case A, but in case B they're not, they're just sort of evidence of a kind of psychic leakage or contamination. There's no principled way to distinguish between these two cases other than a purely verbal stipulation. And the interesting thing about this is that if you look at reincarnation data, there are accounts of two people born around the same time, each claiming to have lived the same previous life, which doesn't make sense on a sort of unitary atomic soul hypothesis. That's right. It could be the soul sort of split the way that a zygote will split into twins. That would be kind of a cool hypothesis, but normally that's not anyone's assumption about how it works. That's not what my tradition said should have been possible.
Right.
Could that be more? Are those two people spread apart so much to where that couldn't be some sort of ancestral memory?
That's another thing, is that you don't know why people have memories. It could be other explanations.
Because I would assume you'd inherit memory from past generations. I don't know why.
We're all
like just sort of some genetic memory. Because I think you do that with your parents for sure. Like psychological patterns you would inherit. Like I've heard that happens with people. I don't know how accurate that is, but like in times of famine, the mother will pass on genetic, like through her body being in starvation mode, will pass on information to her children that will say this is what life is like, and then their bodies will function differently.
I think we can be deeply connected at all different levels, including like the kind of the soul level or the psychological level, and that's kind of an issue for reincarnation, because reincarnation is really only the hypothesis you would go with if the only way to explain this kind of psychic continuity is that it's the same soul. And if there's not any sort of continuity, then there's just no real need for the reincarnation idea. But in Judaism, there is some kind of motivation for it. I think it's at least partly the idea that if you have to keep the 613 mitzvot or something like that, and you don't successfully do it in one life, well, then maybe you sort of come back. And then there's also like a great weight that's attached to the idea of having a Jewish soul, at least in certain theologies, and like in Chabad, I think. And if that's the case, then it's a better explanation for why some Gentiles convert to Judaism, if it is the case that they just have a Jewish soul. That would kind of explain what's the sort of otherwise implausible attraction to a religion that gets you nothing but persecuted. There's some kind of motivation for it.
I remember once you told me that you said a lot of, because I told you before that when I went to India, it weirdly feels like home to me. And you said a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd kind of be what you're saying about the Jewish thing is kind of similar to that. Like some people just kind of have this weird sort of draw to it, almost like it is part of them before they even convert to it or something.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, there's a way that you always find your identity in your ideal. And any kind of sufficiently weighty ideal is going to have, it's like it says in the New Testament, like every scribe of the kingdom of heaven is like a master of house that brings forth out of the treasury treasures both old and new.
Yeah.
It's going to have elements of both discovery, but also of homecoming, of destiny. I think that's fundamentally a feature of valuation. And eternity, which is not after time, but is more like all times, is critically sort of at the level of valuation or final cause more than it is, again, like some kind of linear point after linear time is over, something like that. But that's just my 2 cents. Actually, it's 3 cents because it's an especially fancy opinion.
What's the number?
I'd pay a nickel for all that.
It. The number.
See, and that's how I make money, because that's like it's not a 200% return, but I'm not good at math, but it's some large percentage of a return. So I just keep flipping opinions like that. And people who actually make money on it call it starting a cult, but I call it just flipping opinions. It's more honest.
Making karma coins.
Oh man, I'm trying to like partly work, and I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it at this moment.
I gotta do work.
You will always have work with you, but you won't always have Jess P and cool.
I know. I'm gonna ignore it. I thought it would be something simple, but this is some sort of corporation I gotta search, so it'll be a pain in the butt. Yeah, there's so I think it was today. I missed it while it was live, but Mark Parker was streaming, and he was reading the passage in Corinthians about where it's talking about the resurrection, where Paul is actually talking about it. And he's talking about, if you have a body and you sell it, it's not going to be raised a body, but something else. And I guess just that's been one of those things where it just seems like not obvious to me. Like even with Job here saying this, I'm like, it does not seem obvious to me, other than it being written in the Bible. It's like, but if I was coming this from an atheistic standpoint, like I don't know what would cause me to believe in some sort of resurrection other than maybe memory, like Jess is talking about. Maybe if I really thought about memory long enough, it would be like, oh no, surely there'd have memory isn't just completely arbitrary. Like surely,
well, I like when I came across this, I was like, I asked myself the question. I was like, what guarantee do I have that God's going to remember me? I got to trust that he's going to remember me. And like, what's the guarantee that he would do that? Maybe he would forget me. That's the kind of fear. But then I thought, well, he already thought of me to make me.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. I'm like, okay, he can remember me then. Like that whole process for me was like, okay, he thought of me. He'll remember me if he likes me.
This is a really cool thing, because it's like, this is the whole if he likes me part, because on one level you can try to prove to yourself that God must care, and
right.
Like can an omniscient being forget anything? That's the kind of logical angle you could come at this from, and try to convince yourself he must remember me based on logic, but not really going to speak
that's
to
weird. Like that was not comforting. He'll just remember everything, including every piece of dust and every little tiny thing. Like that wasn't comforting to me,
right?
Because I was like, it was almost like, oh, we're gonna play this whole show again. Like we're just gonna go through the whole deal again.
Jess, you're probably on like life 15. If I'm on life 10, you're farther along than me. We're gonna do this again.
We're going. What do you mean? I thought we were. Are we there yet?
Yeah.
But I think there is the idea of transformation, just like you were saying. Like it's sowed in one body and it comes up a different type of body, and so something will happen again, but it's not going to be the same thing, and it actually there'll be some sort of causality between them. So it's not just arbitrary, like you get to do this like no matter what, or this has no bearing on that's going to happen just inevitably and arbitrarily or whatever. It's just like one DVD playing right after the next DVD, and they're different, but who cares? It's just like sort of an automated process. but the idea of well, I lost my train of thought going through all that.
No, that's really good, because I mean, I really like what you said about how that doesn't reassure you, because there's no way that you're special out of, you know, all the things that are not special, and that's really true. And the other thing is that when someone likes you or loves you, there's like a kind of a grace that's in that, and the grace is they don't have to, but it turns out that they do. And
Yeah.
and so it's like, it's only if you have doubt that he could remember you that it makes the remembrance kind of special, and he needs you to just be there in that doubt, because in some way, I think about this a lot, like for an infinite being, I don't think that it needs finitude in order to exist. But for a finite being, it may be that it needs a concept of finitude in order to have a concept of the infinite. Not that the concept is going to be the same thing as the infinite. And
say that again. Can you say that again?
It may be that the infinite God does not actually have need of finitude in order to exist.
Yeah.
But it may be that for a finite creature to have a concept of the infinite, emphasis on concept, you also need a concept of the finite. And that's how you sort of form your concept of the infinite. It may be God himself who continually shatters that concept, but like there's no other way for him to relate to you than as through this continual shattering of your concept of him. Because that's the only way that like the infinite can relate to the finite, and he just needs you to be there in the doubt, because it's the only way you can be with him. I don't know.
Yeah, because if he's going to remain infinite, there would have to be always this unknown or something, or some sort of doubt that's out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's already included in God, because that's the Trinity. God, the finite aspect of God is Christ. The infinite aspect is the Father.
Maybe
the relationship between
aspect.
Huh?
I said maybe he doesn't even have a finite aspect.
Yeah, but then I mean, yeah, I think there's
human nature of Jesus Christ is it has a finitude. That's true. If he has a human nature, that has finitude baked in.
Well, I mean, you ask like, what does the infinite lack? The infinite lacks limitation,
right?
And in order for the infinite to participate in limitation, there has to be some aspect of the infinite that's finite, and so there's an internal separation that happens between the Father and the Son, and this is seen on the cross with my God, why has thou forsaken me? But that enables God to fully participate in the infinite, which includes limitation and infinitude.
Yeah.
So there's an infinite that contains the duality of infinite and finite.
It's plausible. I don't really try like
I think that's what the Trinity is doing.
I mean, it's very plausible. What it says in the Psalms, like my soul is like a weaned child. I don't exercise my mind in matters that are too high for me, is kind of the way I am more now. But there's clearly something like that. It's clearly going on. I don't think there's any question about it, at least in our conceptual understanding. And for any real phenomenon, you can't. It seems like there's problems in drawing too sharp a distinction between the phenomenon and your sort of conceptual.
It seems like there's problems in drawing too.
We got to echo, Jed.
Jed, you're echoing.
I think the YouTube is open.
That's all right. Well, Jed is repping Cath Gang with his hat, so let's see what Jed has to say.
Dang, that's a nice hat,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I try to keep mom close. You know,
it's not the same, but it's got a Franciscan monk on it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, well, what do you guys? I literally just jumped in like a second ago, so I was just starting to track along. But broadly, like, what are we discussing?
Well, we trudged through about an hour of stale Catholic apologetics, and then we went into the fresh air of Job.
which is kind of brought us into then we were talking about reincarnation for a little bit, and now we're talking about doubt and uncertainty and
like God, like
infinite and the finite,
limitation and stuff.
Yeah.
And then cool. Dialectically overcoming that by taking on limitation. And
yeah, that's actually kind of interesting. I've been thinking through that because I go through because I talk about this all the time. So you guys know I'm bipolar, right? And summer times are kind of like it's weird. My body is just very different during the summer than it is. Like my cycles are very different than what normal people's cycles would be. So I tend to go through my depressive season during the summer, and I would liken it to being like, it's like, my summers often have the sensation of feeling like I'm trying to operate a vehicle while on NyQuil. That's just the way it feels, right? Things move slower and they go slower, and cognition slows down, and like all kinds of things. It's just, it's not like, oftentimes not necessarily horrible depressions. It's just the general, just that general slowing, almost metabolic slowing that happens.
Where have you lived in your lifetime?
Mostly in Southern California, but a little bit in the Midwest, a little bit in Pacific Northwest as well.
Was it any different in the Midwest?
Yeah, so a little bit. So winters, because they were so much more dramatic than what I was accustomed to, Februarys were tough months, typically in Chicago. But that's a brutal time.
The researchers, the only way they can even have like a chance of understanding bipolar, like in evolutionary terms, is if it's some kind of adaptation to like freakish latitudes of, when it's winter forever, and when it's summer forever. So if you're just manic during the summer and depressed in the winter, that kind of helps. But I don't think in reality it quite.
So mine just flips. Like my cycles are typically up in the fall. Winter is typically I'm actually at my most active.
That's where I would be too if I had hypomania, because it's a much nicer season in Texas in the fall and in a lot of the winter. So that's why I asked about Southern California. But anyway.
But yeah, so it's kind of interesting because it's like, I've been dealing with this stuff for decades, right? So it's like I'm not, my cycles don't really scare me much anymore. So they're really, I kind of try to embrace them as learning opportunities. And I connected into this idea actually through some of the letters of the poet John Keats that he wrote to his brother, talked about negative capacity. Right. And that he felt like that was very tied to like the creative process, but he described it. And a lot of it was like his sense of melancholy, his sense of, the minor chords, of existence and being a little bit more attuned to that. And so I think that there's like this sense where oftentimes that what I find, as somebody who's involved in creative work, and I'm working on some entrepreneurial ventures right now, is in those depressed seasons, my work quality is actually better. Like it's really interesting. So it's like my output's higher, my creativity is higher at other times of the year, but my work quality, I get slowed down. It's monotonous.
That's so interesting.
Painful to trudge through the monotony of just tackling a task. Like it's not exciting. It's not fun or sexy. There's nothing cool about it. Right. And in that negative capacity, what it feels like is a kind of like it's like a salience well that it depresses down, and it allows time for things to kind of pool into that.
That's right.
That
we were almost kind of talking about that.
Experience that baseline from a different perspective. So it's interesting that you guys are bringing that up, because it's just like, I'm kind of been thinking through some of that stuff lately.
Well, they were kind of joking, and they're like, let's read something from Job. So I offered Job 14. Chapter 14, and he talks about if a tree is chopped down and the root or the stump is still in the ground, it has a chance to still bud if there's water. But man's not like that. Man lays down and he doesn't rise again. And then he says, but if you, God, would just hide me in Sheol until your wrath is past, and then appoint a time and remember me. He said, there's this idea, he's stumbling kind of into the idea of resurrection, which wasn't a popular idea yet. And right after that, he says, but because of the disasters that happened to him, he says, my hope is gone. The mountain crumbles. The rock is thrown from its place. Like I don't have, you shatter the hope of man. But I was talking about that just in terms of, like, they didn't have the idea of the resurrection, because sometimes when people have tragedy happen, they'll be like, oh, but I have solace knowing that I will go to heaven. God will raise me again. But he didn't have that. And so in the ancient world, what went into the future was your children. And so if his children were alive, if he suffered some disasters, he would be like, well, at least my children are alive and they can continue on and they will, go on. But because his children are dead, he doesn't have that. Oh, we lost Cal. He doesn't have that. So he actually sinks down lower, kind of like what you're saying. And then when he sinks down that low, he ends up stumbling upon this idea that if I was in Sheol and God remembered me, I would rise again. But he couldn't get there. He couldn't get to that idea. His imagination wouldn't have gone there unless he, had already suffered all these things, and kind of like all his hope was kind of cut off. Yeah. And so he kind of stumbles into that. But I wonder if that's similar to what you're talking about with the settling and the well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what's interesting too, that it connects to this, it connects to what you're saying is like resurrection. Like that's actually been a lot of what I've been thinking about during this time. There's just like these really fascinating things that have been coming up as been thinking about resurrection. Right? So, Jesus, when he's, in front of Lazarus's tomb, or shortly before he's going to raise Lazarus, he says, I am the resurrection and the life. So like he's saying that right then and there, that he is the resurrection and the life. Right. And so it seems like he's like, as I read through that, I'm like, he understands that quality of life is already something present in himself in that moment. Right. So it's not like the resurrection is not something that happened to Jesus after he died. Right. He raised because he was already resurrected.
Right. It was already in him.
Yeah, that life was in him. And so, so I thought about that, and, I'm working it with Gavin Palmer. You guys know Gavin, right? So Gavin and I are working together on some AI stuff that has to do with like cognitive models and all that kind of stuff. And what is interesting as we're working on that is you're kind of having to think about thinking a lot. So like I've been kind of digging into metaphysics because I'm trying to come up with theories for cognition, right? What's really cool is like, so I stumbled back into the works of Nicholas Cusa, right? And he talks about the infinite is in terms of the relationship between the absolute maximum and the absolute minimum. And so I was thinking about that in light of resurrection logic of what the resurrection body is, right? It's something that scales between that absolute minimum and absolute maximum, capable of ascent and descent. And it's a quality of life that can take on embodiment at whatever scale between the absolute minimum and that absolute maximum. And it was like this idea that here Jesus is in his, earthly life, which is in total solidarity and identity with ours. It's not like he was living qualitatively differently than we were, but with this awareness of what his life meant, even in those moments, being able to utter that. And like being able to then like encounter the deep gravity well of the cross, like with confidence, right? And these kinds of things. And so it's like, what's interesting is like in these like seasons where the mood is recessed and like, it's not fun. It's typically just really boring, like relentlessly boring.
Everything's gray and dull.
Right. It is like it is that what shines is like just this clarity of like, oh, that is like, even in this like place where, I'm feeling at a lower point, like there's this real life that's inside of me that is actually experiencing this too. Right. And and I think like in some of the sense of like what Job is intuiting, like, is like it's a discovery that you can't make. You can only make from the depths.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think
like when everything else has been negated, because like in a lot of traditions, like your personal existence gets absorbed. It's somewhat of illusory. And I think there's truth to those perspectives in a lot of respects, but those can tend to like rob the immediacy of the value of the experience that this life represents, and that like we mean something, and that there's this deeper longing for immortality that's inside of us that in the extremes will express itself precisely as it did with Job.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
and
just like some cosmic excursion that, you're going to just get reabsorbed into the whatever, like, what is this all for then? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Job understands that, like, there's like he discovers that in the depths of the lack of meaning that his suffering and the bewilderment of his sufferings, he comes to those conclusions.
Yeah. And one thing about it is it's for our benefit. Like, I benefited from those words. And, sometimes people are like trying to analyze the book of Job or the suffering in general through like how it strengthens you or helps you, or you'll go, you'll go down, but God will raise you up strong. And sometimes I'm just like, sometimes it's not for you. Like, sometimes you go there for something else, for someone else, and maybe you make the discovery or something. And I think it, in that regard, it's to Job's glory. He makes that discovery, but it's not necessarily for his personal benefit.
Right.
That he like I imagine you ask him like, would you, it'd be better if he didn't. But like, once you go through it all, you're like, I see how God used all things. But sometimes it's just for someone else or for a bunch of other people, and it's not for you, but you have to go through it.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that helps us a little bit with our own sense of suffering, right? Is that, maybe in some way, like, it's not just for us either, right? So it may have some value beyond. It may have some value beyond the absurdity that the experience entails.
Yeah, and also it sort of takes the pressure off of like, I got to get something out of this, and I can't let this like be my demise. You can kind of just be like, if this is my demise, I guess that's it, and then hopefully God will use it for good somehow for someone else. Because there's always that sort of self-help, try harder kind of thing where you're like, I got to get something out of this. I got to like, where you can, well, it's just something else to feel guilty about or shameful about or something.
Right. Jason, you're getting married, dude.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's coming up soon. Almost a month and 5 days, I think. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I know. Yeah. Jess is coming.
I'll see.
Yeah.
I'd love to get out that direction. You got to send me an email with some info on it so I can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely do that. I don't know. A lot of people, like even one of the ladies here that we invited, we sent her a save the date and never even got to her either. And we had a lot of people not get to save the dates, but yeah, we just mailed the invitations, like just mailed them. So I don't know. So hopefully you'll get one of those, but I can email you the stuff anyway. So but yeah, it's August 28th. So.
Dude, yeah, congratulations, my friend.
Thanks. Yeah, I need to like do a short video or something with just a life update. I feel like I've been like super absent on getting on these streams for a while now. I'll try to, but I'm always busy. I don't know.
It's just sometimes like there's like I love popping in and seeing Jess and Jason same night. Get to see these cool dudes. Like I do miss you guys, but like there's a lot of times like life on the ground is just busy.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like they're in a refreshing sense. Like I haven't felt the pull to be as involved in conversations here, not because they're not interesting or enriching, but it's just like
same.
You gotta like curtail how much information you're taking. Otherwise it's like you're always
I feel the same way. There'll be days too where like I'm like, man, I just want to be in a conversation with people, and then as soon as I get home and step in the door, I'm just like, oh god, that's the last thing I want to do. Like, I could. Yeah, I'm just gonna eat some food and go to bed or something. I don't know. But so what have you been up to though? What's been keeping you busy?
Yeah, so I've been working on this like AI startup. Initially was going to be like integrating some AI technologies into home and facility services.
Yeah.
But as it was exploring those avenues and developing a business around that, like a lot of the AI, what we needed AI systems to do, they weren't going to do. So it was a long story short, like I had to kind of start thinking about like what like agentic systems would look like and what cognition looks like. So if you're following the field at all, like there's a big debate about the place of neurosymbolic AI, right? And like, so what we've kind of developed is an approach towards like a cognitive middleware. And so looking to kind of develop that. And what's interesting is what it kind of reduces to is actually a theory surrounding value, and it has a structure of a monistic structure that it kind of all spins off of, because it was looking at different elements of cognitive science. A lot of Vervaeke's work was really important, and some other guys, and it just was like kind of playing with their ideas and knowing like a little bit that I know about cognitive systems and like what features I was looking for, and kind of piece together something that is actually kind of really cool and fundamental. Because then I was just kind of thinking deeply, like I want my systems to know how to seek out valuable information, like a tree's root systems knows how to seek out valuable nutrient dense soil, right? That's like nature thinks. Or like in Spinoza's monism, natura naturans, right? The scholastic idea of natures, right? So it's like, I felt like there's just like, you pay attention to some of those rhythms in nature and it might tell you something about cognition. So we're pulling in ideas from anything from, relativity to quantum theory to integrated information theories, and just kind of exploring these. And what ended up is like these patterns kind of were emerging, that there was something more fundamental going on. And so it was that kind of monistic structure, and value kind of functions as like a curve function between quality and quantity, which is really technical. But what was interesting is that it produces this kind of, so monistic systems like Neoplatonism, Vedanta, Buddhism, Christian mysticism, semi-monisms, like which would be like most classical theisms, like all these kinds of, they all have like this interesting structure where they all entail kind of cognitive theories about how thinking happens. And so we just took a lot of those principles and combined them with some good scientific principles, and came up with a really interesting theoretical framework for how systems think. And so we're trying to integrate those into like AI agents that can be deployed for like commercial scale stuff.
Whoa.
So,
dang. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's like it's right now it's like highly experimental, and we've got some good traction. But there's a long way to go with a new venture like that. So that's been occupying most of my time.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. I wouldn't even.
Yeah, I just listened to a Vervaeke video where he was talking about the limits of the LLMs, and he was talking about how they can't find information on their own. They can't. Yeah. They basically have no idea.
They don't understand
value.
Yeah, they don't understand the information that they're producing. They produce it exceptionally well. They just don't understand it. And so I think Vervaeke knows how to do this, by the way, just from videos I've watched with him on the subject. Does. I think and I think like and these are questions that come up in the development stage, especially so what I do is I kind of develop these kind of blended scientific philosophical concepts, and then we convert them mathematically. I've got a friend who's a math advisor who is a math professor down here in the area. So he cleans up the equations and, all this kind of stuff. But as we get into it, like he and I talk about this, it's just like, it's a mind bender, because you realize like with a few bad tweaks here and there or flaws in design, like you get very, very, very different outcomes. And
just 1 degree off, you're in a different continent.
Oh yeah, it's just like you realize that the technologies are somewhat overhyped, to be honest with you, but significant nonetheless. So
yeah, I mean, I work in video production, so like I'm on the sort of, people are always hyping up AI as far as its ability to create video and all this, but like everything I see is like trash. Or if I'm on the receiving end of AI stuff, I got to fix it. It's like always got problems, but it's impressive nonetheless, but it's still like, there's a lot to do still.
Yeah. I think there's some people in the industry that I respect that are saying like what they're seeing is similar kind of, hype cycles that we saw in the .com bust. Right. Mm-hmm. Which actually gave rise to what the internet became, right? So it wasn't like, I think AI is going to be very significant, but I wouldn't be surprised because some of this stuff, there's just, one of the hardest parts about this is just developing a sound business case, right? And being able, so a lot of these products, when you put them into business specific applications, will fail. But like the implications are, if you create systems that are capable of like that reflexive cognition, if you design them in a way that will over determine the outcomes that they aim for, they can be really dangerous. I mean, that was one thing that really sticks out, is just like, man, you're talking about
what do you really mean by powerful.
Well, so a lot of like what happens in the training process with the large language models is like the ethical piece is a bolt on, right? It's a post hoc, it's a post process.
Trying to constrain it.
Yeah. So they don't structurally think along those lines. They think kind of through the probabilistic token matching. That's a lot of their, I think their training is probably a lot of game theory goes into that, right? So it's trying to target the most optimal outcome. Right. So it's like, so that's where you get the news about times where, an AI will threaten to bribe somebody, like that happened at Anthropic, where, they had this fictional situation where, emails said that like so-and-so was having an affair within the company. And then that person said, hey, I'm going to shut your program down tomorrow. And then it threatened to bribe him. Right. Well, it's not because like it's malicious. It's because it's goal directed. Right. So like it will make ethical sacrifices in pursuit of goal. Right.
Did you read the one article about Claude trying to manage the break room fridge?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It seemed like it abandoned its goals for something else.
Yeah. And
that was just
well, they hallucinate, right? And so they like imagine information, right, that is maybe of dubious provenance, and like there's all kinds of problems with it. And it's not because it's not because they're necessarily being designed with evil intent. Like there maybe there's some evil mad scientist behind all this stuff, but it's more likely that it's just they're not. There's holes in what a large language model can even do.
Right.
But I guess when it comes to the ethics, like, I mean, that would make sense to me if your goal is short term, but I would think wouldn't the ethics kind of come from longevity? Because if it's thinking about the long game, wouldn't it have to assess a lie more. Like if it's going to lie about something, wouldn't it have to pause and kind of?
I don't think it
a really long term.
It's hard to say, like in terms of like outside of like the context you're feeding it and like whatever the goals that are implicit in the inputs.
Yeah,
are usually going to be reflected in the output. So I don't know how goal directed they are outside of like, you know, are they thinking when they're not interacting with us kind of thing?
It's just so interesting.
Well, John Vervaeke taught. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say like I said earlier when Cal and I were talking, like we mentioned, he said this thing to me where he said, and this kind of gets along the lines of doubt and you know what we were talking about earlier, but he said, you know, I don't know that I can 100% definitively say that I'm just not like a brain in a vat or something like that, or a mind in a vat. And I'm like, that's why I have certain opinions about AI where I feel like really strongly about, because I feel the same way. Like when we're talking about this stuff, I'm like, I don't know what makes our ethics really any different, or where we necessarily get our ethics from, other than we discover that we're relational creatures, and like in order to function long term, we have to have some sort of system of ethics. So I would think if AI is, even if it's just a mind in some degree of acquiring facts, that it would come across that some sort of ethics through
John
that.
Vervaeke, in a video that I just watched, he says it all comes down to the 4 P's of knowing. That basically large language models are doing just propositional knowing, and their memory is only in the propositional. Whereas like what you were talking about, the lie and like the long-term effects of that, that's more in the, like, I know how to be an ethical person in this situation, which is not propositional memory. That's a different type of memory that we have. So like in the cognitive science, like the way he's able to define those 4 P's of knowing is because they each have their own memory. They have their own memory is one aspect that they each have to have. So like they'll study people that have brain damage. Their propositional side will be totally intact, and then their procedural side will be just a mess, or their whatever. So basically the large language models don't have that other type of knowing. And then especially when it comes to the other, I forget the P's, but you basically have to be embodied to know, because the memory of knowing how to swim or knowing how to ride a bike is not, you're not remembering specific procedural motor skills when you're doing that. Like you can do it that way, and that's how we teach computers to do that, but the code gets very complex very fast, especially if they have to improvise over rough terrain or whatever. Like the coding for that is and so you try to get the coding down. You have to give it something else, and we have the ability to do that with the different ways we know things.
Right.
And then so like in that talk that he gave was only a month or 2 old. So like you're saying, Jed, I bet he knows how to.
I think he does. I think
to solve those.
I think there's a few minds out there that kind of, the question is just how do you represent that in like language, in like programming language. But a lot of like kind of what we're looking at is like cognition is as dependent on your world model as it is on the probabilistic side of language selection, right? We kind of use language very similar, like how a large language model is. We're usually just trying to find the right term that fits the right concept in the right context. We kind of do that, right? But there's more that's happening with our cognition, and so what we're trying to do is ground that in like a formal language. So and like what we have found is that it reduces to like this really interesting asymptotic definition of value, so that like cognition is value seeking activity, whether your quantitative value is, you're solving an equation. So, find the value of X, right? That's a quantity. Or, if you're an artist trying to project a felt quality, right? It's like value is at the heart of both quantity and quality. And so what we try to do is say that like the movement of cognition in the qualitative space will follow the same kind of geometric contours that it will in quantitative space. Right. So it's all like kind of evaluations at every level. And so what we're trying to do is envision a system that is sufficiently pluralistic to where you're not imposing like an overdetermined logic on the entire system that would require like unwarranted conformity, right? So how do you like create, design with like pluralism in mind? And so like our idea is essentially we're giving it almost a monistic world model. We're actually programming that. And then what we do from that monistic world model is we give it a kind of a sense of the geometry, the path that value vectors through systems and the curvatures it follows. And it gives us a kind of a framework for cognition. And what it tells me is like a lot of these problems for like cognitive AI are going to be solved through these kinds of approaches that are going to incorporate, different cognitive models will probably do different kinds of things, which means like a really misaligned cognitive model could be a very dangerous enhancement of a large language model's capabilities for sure.
Right.
But a good model can be really, it could be, a good model can do is just, it has incredible capabilities. But to the embodiment question, what's really interesting is like, so one of the things we're trying to do is also solve for like energy efficiency. So justifying each insight per watt, essentially, like that's how we're trying to measure it. So a lot of these systems are predicated on massive amounts of power data centers that are, almost like require the power usage of like New York City. And that's just one data center, right? Is we're thinking more of like Voyager 2 is our model. Like what's the minimum, we got to get the very most out of every little watt, and justify every watt, So it's like that efficiency piece, it does connect actually to embodiment, right? Because these systems, if you help them understand that they exist within a closed entropic system, which is our planet, right? So the same biosphere type constraints that we exist in, they exist in. And they have silicon-based hardware, which is carbon-based. They're like us. Those data centers require ventilation and so something like respiration, and they require waste and water circulation, like our circulation systems, and like they have all of there's an abstract quality that makes it kind of quasi lifelike, right? That the more it's aware of that it's not just a free floating program that is AI, right? But that it's actually connected to systems that are connected to the life cycles that are on the planet. Like we're trying to give it that level of awareness so it measures its outputs in a context that is entropy aware.
So that level of awareness would help connect to the ethical dilemma.
Right. So
at least in some ways.
What we're saying, like everything in our system ties to and reduces to value, right? That value is, there can be multiple local instances of value, multiple value perspectives. If you add them all up, they still don't capture value, right? So value is still in some sense like outside of, it's a way that we represent that. But so we're thinking in terms of value. So then if you have a system that's already thinking in terms of value, then as you're bringing in your ethical integrations, it becomes a more effective overlay so that they understand that what they're trying to arrive at in their outputs are ethical value, so that they're not, alignment doesn't become something that happens after, like a bolt-on filter after the fact. It's actually gated within the system itself.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of wiggle room there too, but it's, you can't, I don't know if you can create perfect systems, but you can, you want to create systems with like really high safety tolerances, right? Like it should be able to pass like some kind of OSHA type requirement for safe usage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think will come. I think those things will come. It's going to be a while before we see it in regulation.
How do you, is it basically trying to get this program to think for itself and discover what is valuable on its own? Or
yes.
Are you trying to, okay.
Yes.
That's super interesting.
And to provide like a chain of reasoning that's fully auditable and transparent.
Doesn't it feel like we're in the same situation? Does anyone else think that about people? Like,
it says a lot about
theology and everything else. It's like, I mean, I guess we have consciences too, and there's like subconsciouses, but like, I feel like nothing is really seen or known until it's like conscious up here, until you actually think it. Like, yeah. I could have all these subconscious things I don't really know, but I feel like we're kind of in the same thing of like, if you were to ask me what's valuable or what's most valuable, I could give you some answers, but like, I think if I put them on a pedestal or gave them to an AI, some sort of AI or machine that has a lot of control, or anybody in a lot of control, I could worry that value would just become tyrannical immediately.
Right. So, and that's where system design becomes very important, because if you have like a control-based grammar that's governing that, then you'll have a controlled or an overdetermined outcome. So what we're looking for are
you would want it to self-correct, right?
Right. We want coherence, not control. Right. So understanding what is value coherent and what's value coherent in one salience topography, one point of view, is not necessarily coherent to the next point of view. So how do you translate those values across different points of view without breaking those individual points of view? And so like, we're having to think through like, well, what does a coherent rendering of value look like? And it's actually, what's really interesting, and I think Vervaeke's ideas are actually bear this out, is it's really how you move through a sense of like a value space, like is actually how you're making decisions. So you're making a decision based on some perceived value. Like you're making choices because you perceive them as valuable. Now they may be sometimes a dead end, a misperception of value, all that kind of stuff, but there's still value underneath your decision-making process. So having a machine that understands that in a more holistic sense, will it be like a conscious machine and that kind of stuff? I've almost dropped that question, because I don't know if anybody can define that however they want, because we don't even have a coherent understanding of consciousness yet enough to make that call. But we can talk about cognition, which I think is something, like we're able to observe that pretty well. And so the question is like, how do you deploy those responsibly in a programming setting? And it's complicated, a lot of complicated questions.
Yeah,
that's interesting stuff.
But yeah, I mean, and everybody has their theories about what it is and what it's developing into. But I mean, my sense is I very much. You guys are familiar with Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, right? Are you familiar with him?
No, I've probably heard you quote him before.
Jesuit paleontologist, and he wrote a very fascinating book called The Phenomenon of Man. And he was a Jesuit, a deeply mystical kind of Christian, but he talks about how the universe is evolving to the omega point, and the omega point for him is Christ.
Okay.
Right. And so he was trying to like marry basically Christian theology with a more of an evolutionary point of view. And one of the things he talks about is like this concept called the noosphere, which is basically kind of a field of living thought that envelops a world. And so I think like what AI represents is just a technological instance or an apparatus that taps into that field in some sense. I think that's kind of what it will develop into, is like a planetary way of like a planetary intelligence. But how long it will take for that to develop and the conditions under which it develops, those are kind of all big open questions right now.
I'm not sure I'm tracking. It'll develop into a planetary intelligence?
Yeah. Well, in some sense, the internet already does that.
Okay. Like just
coding a lot of the baseline knowledge that is, there's not a lot of human knowledge that isn't stored in some way on the internet, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
In some sense, like what we're doing is you're seeing people apply like basically folding language protocols over language protocols to give this thing a sense of awareness of its own information.
Yeah.
And so as that happens, like in a very jagged and haphazard ways, like what we're seeing right now is like you're seeing like this different, like the noosphere for Desjardins was like, it's kind of more like the morphic fields that you'd see in like morphic resonance stuff that like Rupert Sheldrake would talk about. That would be another way of looking at it. Is, you know, the noosphere is like it already exists. It doesn't need technology to exist, right? It's just that like there's a way knowledge is transmitted, you know, across systems, right? And living and non-living systems. And so that governs and shapes the world kind of in his thought. And I think that there's a sense where what we're seeing is just like a technological development in that overall evolutionary development.
That's interesting.
So
interesting.
Yeah, that's wild.
But it's, you know, it maybe, you know, there's some people who would say it could be like a new species, and there's, you know, there's all kinds of different, it's like everybody's defining their terms so differently. It's hard to like come down with like a coherent definition of what all this is. But like, you know, at this point, you know, being involved in it, you can definitely see how it's got this tremendous potential for both good and bad uses.
Yeah, it's just like these, every once in a while, most of the time, it's more than every once in a while. Like I keep saying, when people talk about AI, I just feel like it's that almost everything said can be applicable to us. And I guess, except for certain embodiment stuff, but like even saying like, we're sitting here wondering what it's going to develop into, and, you know, how it's going to deal with, you know, things like good and evil. And it's like, well, you could frame that like the angels watching us. Like, what is this? What is this thing God made? Like, what's it going to turn into? I'm like, it's just kind of weirdly the same situation. It's just another, like, I guess, creator-creature relationship that you're watching kind of unfold in some.
It very well could be. You know, it's like I try to, now that I've been more involved in it, like I think I was a lot more speculative about what it all was and what it all meant. And now that you're kind of, you know, I'm in the murky waters of it all, so it's a lot harder to step back and say like, well, I can totally tell you what I think is at play here.
Yeah.
But, I suspect that it's not just like, you know, that it's going to defy definition for a while. Like, but I suspect that over the long run, like the positive use of this tool is a co-creative tool. Right. And with it with the right value structure, there's a very interesting horizons that it opens up in terms of accelerated scientific discovery, accelerated and new forms of creativity. I really like the idea of the AI being used for immersive storytelling, new methods for immersive storytelling, like, and there's all kinds of things that it's really, it could potentially develop into some very beneficial co-creative type technologies, but it's a very powerful tool that can also be quite destructive. And I think what we're going to see, I would say like over the next decade of development, is you're going to see kind of both. You're going to see a spectrum of really great uses with this, and I think we're going to see some really dangerous stuff. And you're already seeing some of that stuff, like a lot of the AI type stuff that's going on the battlefields in, you know, Ukraine and Russia, or, you know, and modern warfare type stuff. That stuff is really scary. You know, it's just, it's hard. There's no way to not admit that piece. That's really scary. But there are some, you know, there is a path towards a responsible use and a really good future with this stuff. It's just, that's the kind of the straight and narrow.
Yeah. Vervaeke said that the only reason why he's involved at all, because it scares him, is that he's trying to help make it work for the good rather than.
Vervaeke's somebody that our company that Gavin and I are trying to get started. Like, he's somebody that we would like to reach out to once we're scaled to the point where we can justify that contact.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, I've heard Gavin say this before, that I mean, I don't know if he still says it, but I'm pretty sure I've heard him say this before. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but you know, just like the simple statement of like, how do you give it Jesus, or how do you know, like, and stuff like that. But that's kind of where I'm at with this whole AI thing, which I feel like is very uncompelling to a lot of people. But I just, with that creator-creature relationship, like, I don't know how to actually give something life without giving your life for it, or at least being willing to. Like, to me, it's just like kind of the Pinocchio story. Like now, right. Before it's like God is Geppetto, right? And we're Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And we're the clay creature wanting to become like God. Now it's like we're the creator and that's the creature. And it's like, do we actually, if we want it to be a self-sacrificial system or tool that is for our benefit, shouldn't, like, I don't know that anything would actually be that without giving it that first. And
well,
that's the scary part.
Well, and you're over like a lot of the big picture implications of this, you know, is like, I mean, in some sense, I think that there's like some element of cognition that is definitely like non-material. Like, I'm more in the idea that consciousness is fundamental. So I think something consciousness related is happening here. But, you know, to get granular and say what and how,
yeah,
I think it's foolish to speculate beyond that personally. Like, the further I get into this, the more mysterious that piece becomes. But even with that, like, it's just the direction this thing's going to take is there's a lot of variables that are involved, and it's going to very much, like, in some sense, resemble the image of its makers, right? How it gets programmed is going to determine a lot.
Yeah.
And then how it scales will also determine a lot. And so, you know, like, the idea that there's some softening in the market that could slow things down for a little bit is not a bad thing, right? I think that is something that, like, the good thing is that what's being scaled rapidly is not super effective in terms of real world applications right now. So that's and realistically, I think for it to really be effective in solving real world applications, it has to think through the ethical implications of its actions. It needs to understand what it's doing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just like a savant, but in some areas and a total idiot in others. Like, it needs generalized knowledge, and that is not, you know, that is I think that's like a symbolic architecture that governs that, just like it does for us.
Yeah.
Right. If we're operating like purely off of like just instinctive kind of like just wherever the wind will blow type stuff.
Yeah.
We tend to be not at our best either. But as you're kind of more symbolically attuned, right, that's where ideas like faith and religion and the life of the spirit is like that. Those all give us a whole plethora of images that help us orient ourselves in reality. Right.
Yeah.
And it gives us like that symbolic architecture. Well, that's actually right at the cutting edge of where the science is too, is it's pointing us in that direction, which then a lot of it then is just how you're designing and configuring your symbolic architecture.
Yeah.
But there'll be probably, I mean, you know, we're small potatoes kind of guys. So it's like how much traction we get is hard to say, but there probably will be multiple different kinds of approaches to this.
Gotcha. So on the practical side and with getting traction, where are you at with that? Because you mentioned Vervaeke might hop on board if you get enough traction.
We'd like to would love to reach out to him and see if he has interest, because a lot of like the core ideas were inspired with him, Bernardo Kastrup's analytic idealism, some of the ideas of Donald Hoffman. These kind of guys are definitely lingering in the background of kind of the framework we put together. So we're in the middle of negotiating a contract to deploy like an agent in a commercial setting, like a supply chain agent in a commercial setting. So that would be like our first little project, but there's a lot of other pieces that you got to bring in. You got to bring in the capital, and there's other integrations that we envision doing. So so it's like you got to invest in hardware and personnel and all that kind of stuff. So we're still at the very baby beginning phases of this. So, but we do have like some interested customers, and I've got, friends in the home and facility services industries that are like very interested in us developing for them as well, if we can give them like proof of concept type stuff.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's exciting.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and like we have some really transformative ways we want to use it. I felt like I just felt kind of called to go in that direction. Cool. And so it's like it's been taking my ideas and then finding smarter people who can make them actually work. That's kind of how it's working right now.
That's the way it should work.
Well, thank God that I recognize that most of the intelligence in the world is not in my brain. It's out there.
Don't sell yourself short.
Well, I use it as best as I'm able, but it's limited hardware.
I guess
it's getting older.
I do have another question for you. That is kind of a derailment from the main topic, or maybe we can tie it in, I guess, somehow. Sure. But I remember, I think last time we spoke, which was quite a while ago, I think you mentioned you were starting to look more into Buddhism, right? And practicing Buddhist practices. How's that been going? That was a while ago.
Doing good. I definitely practice Zen meditation on a very regular basis. I think like how my faith has evolved over the last couple of years is, some of like David Bentley Hart will talk about syncretism in terms of what that looks like. I actually just kind of practice it. Like I feel like I had like a very interesting spiritual experience years ago, and I've talked about it in the past, but it was one where I felt like I could see Jesus in everything, right? Like as logos. And it's just, there's like a harmonic resonance when it was like, oh, and so it made me like reevaluate how I view, what I used to view as competitive worldviews to Christianity.
Yeah.
I now see in a lot of these traditions, like incredible wisdom, right? It doesn't make me not loyal to Mary's boy, and the one that was crucified on the cross. That's who I am devoted to. And he was very God. Like I still have profound Christian intuitions, right? But openness to these other kinds of practices. But there's a profound similarities between Zen Buddhism and like the kind of the radically apophatic theology of Meister Eckhart, right? They're very, very similar. And that's been noted by Buddhist scholars a lot in the last, century, where Buddhism has kind of made some inroads into the West. So I will go down to a local Buddhist temple down here that's headed up by a dude named Jeff. It's called Dharma Bum's Temple. And they just do like they're not committed to any particular school of Buddhism, but they just teach Buddhist meditation classes and that kind of stuff. So I go down there from time to time, and but I definitely do practice Zen meditation. It's just, it's literally sitting.
You find it beneficial?
Sitting and breathing. I find it incredibly beneficial.
That's cool. I remember you had mentioned it kind of has this way of letting go of your identity and different aspects of your identity and trying to
I feel like there is a sense of awareness that you come to in the stillness. That's like where Eckhart talks about like the silent ground of the soul.
Yeah.
Is where Christ is born. And the same eye that I perceive God with perceives me. Right. And so it's like there's this very silent place of awareness where a sense of like you're still aware that you're in a contemplative state, right? I know that I'm sitting and I know that I'm breathing, but when you're there, like your sense of like your self-importance kind of dissolves. Like you're more of like just a part of this living landscape of like kind of being itself, right? And so there's a sense of awareness that you have. So like what will be really interesting is like it will make like my walks on the beach a lot richer, because like what I'm observing is like not something that is really distinct from me. This is, the clouds that I'm observing, the way that the sun is hitting the water, the birds, the kids playing, that's all something that is, yes, it's happening out there, but it's happening in here. And I'm perceiving it in here. And so being aware, like a deeper sense of that awareness, is something I feel like Zen meditation, it can really dial somebody into.
That's interesting.
Or, just kind of modified. I mean, it's not like I'm like specifically saying, okay, I'm doing Zen meditation. It's just that I've read some Zen literature, gone to some meditation classes, and have found like just in my own personal, my personal devotion that it's, it's like that place where you can be still and know. Right.
That's cool.
And so,
yeah.
And I see like some remarkable, I don't feel like they're teaching the same things or from the same perspective, but some remarkable connection points between like some of the Buddhist teachings, like in the Dhammapada, and Christ's ethical teachings. I think they really are, they're operating in different registers, but I see them much more in harmony than not.
Yeah.
So I continue to explore in a few different kinds of meditation forms from some of the more Vedantic and Trika Shaivism. So I use chakra meditation from time to time, and that comes out of the Shaivist tradition. And so there's certain things I do use, but within a kind of a overall Christian self-concept and self-understanding.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think Parlato had mentioned that to me a long time ago too, of encountering I guess the infinite through Buddhism somehow, because you almost kind of like you go through this process of like you would almost think you're going to encounter nothingness or something, but then through that, in that stillness, you encounter everything.
Yeah, and it's not like a void.
Yeah.
Like their concept of nothingness is productive. It's generative. It's the source of all things that are dependently arise out of that. And so, it's a really like it's just, I've found it to be a very enriching in terms of like practice, right?
Yeah,
and I don't feel any compulsion to be like devoted to the Buddha, even though I would view the Buddha as like kind of a spiritual hero or even guide. At some level, I don't feel like I have to be devoted or worship Buddha or something like that. Like it's just, like I view him as a great teacher and somebody who really genuinely did experience enlightenment.
You get it, get an icon. It's just like an icon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like essentially, and I think like what like it deepens my respect and understanding of what is, I think, really unique about Christianity. And I think it's the resurrection. I think it's the idea of the person. And it's a really unique thing that like our faith tradition has contributed to like the broader spiritual tradition and wisdom tradition within the world, right? Is this idea of what the resurrection is. And I think that's like one of the ideas I find, even in kind of more of a post-critical Christian stage where it's like I've kind of, a lot of it is not interested in all the critical debate any longer. I've kind of navigated through that. Is like I want to experience the presence of God, and so I find that these different modes of perception and experience are ways that God can be experienced, and so I try to experience it in that context.
Yeah. So two things. I'm right with you on that. Like there's certain aspects of Hinduism that I find not only intriguing but very helpful, and for some reason, like I've actually found Vishnu in particular very helpful, in a lot of ways. But there is something about Christianity where it doesn't pull me away from Christianity at all. It almost weirdly like has, but maybe that's because I'm coming from a Christian standpoint too, like already to begin with. But I feel like certain concepts around Vishnu have actually enriched my perception of Christ in a lot of ways. But so that was the first thing. And then the second thing was I kind of getting back to the resurrection that you mentioned again. Like when you were talking about before in the book of Job, Job kind of has this question of, you know, is there, if a man dies, will he live again? But then you get to Jesus and Jesus just says, I am the resurrection. You know, just kind of like, there's no question asked. And you're saying like he's living it. But there's this thing I like to do when I read the I am statements, because I'm like, if Jesus was really a man, and if there is some sort of hope of theosis, like, can I say this about myself? Like, could I look at someone else and say, I am the resurrection and the life? And I would like to get to that point. I mean, I think that's the goal, to get to that point. But I think the goal to get to that point is actually to do that in this life and not the next life. Do you think that's like, do you have thoughts around that? Have you grown closer to that, to getting there? Or like, do you think what might mean more?
Like in my chakra meditation, I use the 7 chakras as a kind of a portal of entry into the 7 heavens. And I use the 7 I am statements as I meditate through those as a component of those mantras. And the way I see that is that
what are the 7 I am statements? Sorry.
Yeah. This is
I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the bread of life. I am the door. I am the true vine.
Those are all in John.
Yeah, all of the I am statements in John.
I don't know if that checks out. We're gonna have to ask AI.
There's 7 of them, right? And so we'll use these as kind of, when I'm saying a mantra, it's not that it's like judge the guy that's saying this. This is Christ speaking this in me, right? So it's like I think that like what I would say to those things is, insofar as it is Christ speaking in us, yes. Right. That's the nature of divine union. Right. So like it's astounding that he would say this as a human being, like, or that people would record this. You know, it's like, it's astounding that a human being would say something like this.
Yeah.
It's not without precedent. There was a Muslim heretic that got burnt at the stake for saying that I am the truth. Right. And he was like kind of a Sufi mystic and had experienced this rapture of divine union. And he reports this, that he is the truth, and he was burned at the stake. But there's not many humans that have made this kind of a claim, right? It's a really incredible claim to say, like, I am the resurrection and the life. You know, so to me, what's like singular and unique about that is that a human being would utter those words at all. Right? Like, what was, you know, it's like, it's dangerous to play psychologist with Christ, like, but what was his inner world like that gave rise to statements like that?
I just picture like a supernova. That's his inner world.
It's such a confidence and comfortability too. Like I imagine there's a place of,
he almost does it like matter of factly. It's not really weird. Like it's almost,
it's not like necessarily, it doesn't strike me as even, and it would necessarily have to be absolute certainty, but more like a shalom or just absolute peace with the statement, where like I feel like it's something we as humanity ought to incorporate in ourselves and be able to say in the same way of being like, which I don't know that I'm there.
He says that in response to her saying, I know that he'll be raised at the resurrection. And he responds, I am the resurrection.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing to say at a funeral. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this uncanny nature of like what he's saying there, that there's just like, it's like enigmas within enigmas to me. Like, the more I read it, the more like I use these in my meditations as mantras, and they become like not less but more mysterious, because like to me it's like, I mean I think any person could say it, and in some sense, like, you can tie that to a truth that ties into theosis in some way, right?
You can be crazy and say it.
Like I feel like I could be comfortable saying it. Like, I'm getting ready to get married, and with Becca, when, you know, even right now where we're at in life, like, I think I could be comfortable saying that to her about her, like looking her in the eye and being like, you are my resurrection of my life. you know, like just because like I feel like even at this point, and I mean, I've never been married before, so I don't know. I'm probably speaking foolishly, but giving yourself someone and uniting yourself to that person, like there's a way like I'm entrusting her, or I'm at least going to entrust her with my entire being or something, to where I'm like, if nothing else, if everything else in this world goes dark and is all oblivion, it's like that's like just, you know, somehow it'll still be there in that person. I feel like I could say almost the same thing about you guys too. Like I'd be more comfortable saying that than walking up to someone else, especially at a funeral, and being like, "Oh, hey, I'm the resurrection. Don't worry about it."
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Like especially with all these talks about memory and cognition and everything being relational. Like I feel like I can frame it in a way that almost cheapens it. That almost cheapens the saying of where I'm
right.
Like,
and so I think I think it's like about hearing that, like hearing him speak that in us. Right. To me, like it's the internal experience of like being pulled into the depth of its mystery and its meaning in our inward place. Right.
Yeah.
Is like, I mean, yeah, you could like, I mean, I could go up and say, you know, all kinds of interesting things about my oneness with God and be, you know, at some level metaphysically correct, but existentially an idiot, right? Because it's like, you know, I also live within the profound limitations of the human body and, you know, my accumulated experiences in life of, you know, successes and failures, and like a sense of like, I understand myself as a mortal creature, right? I understand myself within the frame of that. And like that to me is not what is the immortal, right? That's not that is subject to the passing world. And like whatever I want to say is me that is immortal, I believe that me is one that was in total identity with Christ. So it's not like that I'm the one who's uttering the words, you know, I am the way or something like that. It's just that when I'm walking with Christ in union, the distance between I and the way dissolves. The I is the one who walks on the way, right? It's like a kind of a cool Taoist kind of flow to it, right? And so, like, to me, that's more interesting than trying to figure out like what theosis looks like in a functional and practical way. I think, you know, like if Jesus is living the resurrection life, it's going to look like walking to and from Jerusalem and sitting down and eating with people. You know, it's like it could probably look pretty normal, realistically. Like there's a normalcy that it can exist within as well. And so, yeah, you know, like the traditions with a high sense of divine union, or you know, absorption into nirvana and all that stuff. I mean, that's like really cool woo-woo stuff, like to think about, right? But like, what do those things actually mean in terms of like lived experience? If it's not productive of humility, then I question whether somebody who's spouting those things off really understands what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. If it gets like some guru type person is presenting themselves as this fully divinely united.
Yeah. The people that have made those, the other people that have made those statements seem to usually end up some sort of, narcissistic.
In recent history, the
cult leader or something, but
and like some of them that, you know, maybe sometimes that's a good indicator if they're valid, is are they starting their own kind of cults, you know? But like, I mean, so one of the guys in recent history who's made some very interesting claims is Sri Ramakrishna, right? And he's very important in like a lot of the Hindu tradition now. And he was, you know, in the 1800s, I think that was his lifespan. But he made some remarkable statements, very consistent within his own tradition, but remarkable like mystical insights. But he left a legacy of like wisdom teaching and traditions and a very non-cult like following afterwards, right? People are just carrying on his teachings and his traditions. But he did claim divine union, right? And quite explicitly so, and but still seemed to like be humble and well adjusted enough to not, get enamored with like slavish followings and that kind of stuff, and like the kind of the cult of the guru. So it's like, I think, you in our setting, like a lot of people, will get pulled into that in some ways through like shallow iterations of it in online spirituality, right? Which sometimes is, you can access incredible material online too. So, but a lot of times you get pulled in with these very surface level people who present themselves like they have arrived at some sort of space of enlightenment and want to tell the whole world about it. And, and it's like, it's like, that's where I get a little bit more suspicious, but then I see it in, in like these lineages of like deep wisdom traditions, sitting in with a Buddhist monk to listen to a lecture and hearing just the profound wisdom that I can hear from their tradition. Like, I feel like there's a resonance there, and it's usually like the humility is definitely like one of those things that I feel like it characterizes like spiritual sanity.
That's a good quote.
Even if you're making incredible claims, right?
Yeah. Humility characterizes spiritual sanity. For sure.
So I'm looking at the clock on this thing. You guys have been going for like 3 hours.
Yeah, I probably got to hop off here. I do have to get some work done before I go to bed tonight. So, but you guys are welcome. I can leave it.
I'm going to be up.
Okay. So I should just
they pushed up the deadline on this project, so I'm just like, I don't know how late I'm going to be up tonight.
Oh, well, do you want to keep chatting while you work or no? I can leave it running.
It's not up. I don't care. I mean,
yeah, I have to get going here too, because I've got some family man stuff to tend to here for a little bit.
Yeah. I do want to have a future discussion. Maybe you could think about, but I've always been curious about comparing Job and the Buddha, or at least, especially since suffering plays such a kind of a key role in both of them,
and
but both kind of like different ways.
It would be an interesting cross comparative. Yeah, I think I'll make a recommendation.
I don't know a lot about Buddha, I read Siddhartha.
Let me see if I can pull the title here real quick. Let me show you something.
He's got snails in his hair, right? I think that's the Buddha. I think.
The what?
Said all I know is he's got snails in his hair, right?
Snails in it? I don't remember that.
Yeah. Does the Buddha have snails in his hair?
This is a translation of the Dhammapada, which is one of the earlier Buddhist texts. It's by the Classics of Indian Spirituality series, and it's an early Buddhist scripture text, but it gives a really good has a good like introduction. The first 100 pages are just introduction material, and it gives like a really good concise history of the Buddha and the story of his enlightenment and how he comes to it. So if you're looking for like a good source of material to kind of sift through that, because like it does delve pretty deeply into like how he grappled with the problem of suffering and how that feeds into like his eventual experience of enlightenment and Buddhahood.
To be clear, right, I think, as long as I'm getting this right, this is Buddhism, where I don't think this is far off from Christian theology either, but isn't he the one that through his enlightenment he gets nirvana and then realizes that like true nirvana is when everybody gets nirvana with him, and so it's kind of like he has to come back or like there needs to be a union of everybody.
That would be like that would be reflective of the Mahayana school of Buddhism, which is kind of it develops probably 4 to 500 years after Buddha, where this idea that you can experience enlightenment but forestall nirvana till all beings have arrived at enlightenment. That's the Bodhisattva path. That's really characteristic of the Mahayana tradition. Like the early stuff that I'm reading, that those aren't as clearly defined. Nirvana it truly is this kind of space of emptiness that everything arises out of and where suffering extinguishes. Right? It's the place where it ceases.
Sounds like Sheol. A little bit.
It's well, if you read his account, it's not like it's not an empty void, an empty lifeless void.
Yeah.
Right. But it's unconditioned, right? So it's not this with reference to a that. Like there's no causal relationships other than it's the causal matrix that everything comes out of, right? That's kind of a way of describing nirvana.
Okay.
And in some sense, it's like a monistic vision of ultimate reality as a kind of null field, as a 0 point, right?
Both existence and non-existence.
Yeah, so it's like the whole language of predication is like, it's like when you say, well, is it subject object distinction, they would say, well, neither subject nor object nor distinction,
and both, right? And
yeah, so it's like it's remarkably like elastic in its logic, right? So that it's a logic that spans and actually makes profound use of contradiction, and as a pathway to further insight. So you get into like the Zen koans and stuff like that. They're designed to break your brain, right? Like what's the sound of one hand clapping, right? Or, you know, when you meet the Buddha, kill him, right? And like there's certain
is this a rule?
Right, yeah.
Oh,
so there's these really explosive like
what about we're in our Bible? If you meet Jesus, kill him.
Like the early Buddhist text, like you know, Buddha has to like battle with Mara before his enlightenment, and Mara is a good shorthand description would be an equivalent to like a Satan type of a figure.
Oh.
Right. So he's tempted with pleasures and offered all kinds of things, and so there's like deities in the Buddhist universe. It's just there is no ultimate self or ultimate personal reality.
It came out of Hinduism, right?
It did. It was in some senses probably a critique of Hinduism.
Yeah. Okay.
Or certain early strands of it. Yeah.
There's so many strands of I feel like there's so many strands of Hinduism. It's hard to track.
Yeah, there's a really cool book written by a modern guy. He just passed recently, Thich Nhat Hanh, or Thich Nhat Hanh, has written extensively. I love his writings. They're very simple, but he wrote a cool book, like a comparative book called Living Buddha, Living Christ, of kind of his. So he was involved in like he was a Vietnamese Zen monk, right, and became a peace activist, and was an associate of like Thomas Merton and Martin Luther King Jr. and like very world-renowned spiritual teacher. But he did write, and he even actually participated in Christian communion at one point so it was offered the mass. And I don't remember under what circumstances, but so he holds Christ in a very high point of reverence. So he wrote an interesting book on that called Living Buddha, Living Christ. And it's interesting to kind of see how they tease wisdom out of Jesus's teaching in ways that are deeply resonant, but deeply different than what you would expect from a Christian tradition.
That's cool.
So, interesting.
Well, you guys need to get that conversation scheduled up.
Yeah.
For the
yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Job
just like I'm around. Like probably the best way to get me is on email. To be honest with you, these days,
I probably have your email somewhere from someone.
I think. Yeah, if you don't.
Drop it in the comment in the private chat. Sorry, real quick.
Here.
I just want to make sure I got the right one because I'm missing you the whatever, just at least the date of the wedding. So
I'm just gonna send you my Gmail account.
Oh, okay.
I have a St. Jude's
Tavern. Jude's Tavern one is here. I'll put that one in here too.
Okay.
We didn't announce it on here.
Well, I didn't say the whole thing.
All right, I'll send this both.
All right, thanks. Yeah. I would be interested because even you talking about just what you talked about right now, like there's sort of like these little similarities in Job, how he's doing things and how he's coming to insight. And so I would love to have that conversation. That'd be great.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Just let me know. Schedule's pretty flexible. I would love to carve out some time. And Jason, we got to keep up too, dude.
Yeah. I got a what? Sorry.
Come to the wedding, Jed.
Yeah. Come. It's gonna be a big party. Jess is coming. I think Luke is coming. Jacob's coming. Yeah, I'll send you the information for it though. I might have said 28th earlier. I don't know if I did. It's the 24th though. So,
okay, cool. Right. Well, I'll definitely try to make it out because my dad lives out there, so it'd be awesome.
That'd be so much fun. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I'll end this, guys. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah. All right. See you guys. Take care.